5, 4, 3. Hi, everybody. Dugroz here with Dugroz Reports. Welcome to my Saturday morning live stream. Today is Saturday, May the 31st, 2025, and I'm reporting live from my house. Good to see each and every one of you on board this morning. Make a comment if you can hear the audio okay. Let's see who's on board. Mike Newland, good morning. Mushu Pork thinks I'm going to freak out about being in a frequent miler video. More about that. Tom Graber is on board, and not only on board, he drops a $5 super chat. Celebrate. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate your patronage. That is very meaningful, and I'll mention right away anybody that makes a gift to the channel, whether it's a donated membership, whether it's a super chat, super sticker, any amount is appreciated. 80% is reinvested into my channel and goes towards things like a new desk setup, cameras, maybe data for my cell phone while I'm traveling. And then 20% goes to my family budget, since this is kind of like a family job, a part-time job rather. My family deserves some benefit. Juan Garcia says, good morning. Glad to see you here. Mojo says, happy half year. It's almost Christmas. Indeed. TM Cowling's on board. Austin, the Florida man, says, first time I've actually caught one from the beginning. Awesome. Thanks, Austin. And TM Cowling says, the frequent miler guys called you Dugroz. Was quite funny. I'll have to hear that. More to come on that. Rewards Master says, good to be here. Mert says, hey, Dugroz. And Mike Newland, whoa, back to Santa Claus mode, Mike. Thank you so much. Gifts 20. Dugroz Reports memberships. Booyah. Celebrate. Thank you, Mike. That is really, really appreciated. Thank you so much. TM, Austin, both say audio's fine. Nick got a membership. Well, that was probably from Mike. Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it. If you are on board and haven't taken the time to do so yet, please click the thumbs up button. That drives more people in here to watch the live stream. I see 30 people on board. Don't know how many have clicked the like button, but that part is free. Nick, thanks. Mike, yep. Okay. Dad on a Mission says hello. Awesome. Mike going crazy again. That's right, Kirby. John reminds everyone to hit like and subscribe. And as he always is, so consistent, John with the $2 super chat. Celebrate. Thank you, John. If you ever give a super chat, super sticker, membership, whatever, and I don't mention it, please point that out. I want to make sure I acknowledge you. Nuracan71's on board. And Nick says, thanks. Nick says, watching down here in Cancun. Ooh, Cancun. Mexicali. All right, 36 people on board. No point in delaying the inevitable. Let's just go ahead and dive right on in to the Dugroz data points. Well, before I do that, I'll take just a second to mention the theme of the day today is an excursus into using Wyndham points for Vacasa. So I'm doing this path method where I talk about how to determine which card you should use for your everyday spend in a somewhat scientific manner. And I started down the path of vacation rentals and cabins and independent properties and those kind of things. And I thought, well, I got to compare this to Wyndham. I'll make this a little side part of my theme. Turns out the side part turned into the entire theme, and I'll come back to that later, but I hope you enjoy it. Dugroz data points are where I just talk about things that are important to me in the world of points, miles, cash back, and more this week. So let's go ahead and take a look at those Dugroz data points. The first one is hat tip to frequent miler, who lets us know Choice Privileges is doing a promotion right now where if you stay twice, you earn a minimum of 8,000 points. Now, you can redeem those 8,000 points for a $50 gift card, but I think most of us would rather have the 8,000 points to use on future stays. It's kind of advertised as a $50 gift card. There are a couple disclaimers with this. First of all, it's a minimum of 8,000 points. So let's say your status would normally earn you 3,000 points. You don't get 8,000 on top of that for 11,000 total. They just round you up to that 8,000. So basically you can stay at a cheap hotel and guarantee you're going to get at least 8,000 points. So I'll give an example where you might want to use this. Now, Choice Hotels is known for some good hotels, but there's also plenty of low-end hotels. For example, I searched Fort Dodge, Iowa, and came up with a Quality Inn that was $59 a night. And Fort Dodge is a town that's north of the Des Moines area, a couple hours. It's kind of your stereotypical once a thriving factory town. Now it's, seen better days. But if you want to stay at the Quality Inn there in Fort Dodge, 3.5 stars, maybe you're not too particular. It's going to cost you $59 a night. With tax, they're saying $131. Now, I value choice points if you are being choosy and cherry picking and that kind of stuff at 1.25 cents per point. So the 8,000 minimum points they're going to give you would be worth $100 for future hotel stays. So you're spending $130 some to make $100. If you're just doing a mattress run, this is not worthy of doing. But if you need to go to Fort Dodge or some other small town where they have an inexpensive choice hotel, might be worth it. I've seen a few where it's down in the 40s, so you never know what you're going to see in that regard. TM Cowling says, I'll be heading down to Cancun on Monday. Thanks, Alaska Miles. Awesome. Mike Newland wants to remind everyone to hit the like button. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate your generosity. And hey, look, Juan Garcia was inspired by Mike and gifted 5 channel memberships. Celebrate. Thank you, Juan. Let's see, 5 times 3. That's just as good as a $15 super chat. Mike's $20 gift was just as good as $60 in super chat. So thank you for that. John acknowledges Mike coming in hot. Juan is hot on Mike's heels. Austin, the Florida man, says, Quality Inn is known for a lack of quality. I agree with you there. You have to kind of pick and choose your choice hotels, especially on that lower to mid end. In my hometown of Ottumwa, Iowa, there's a Quality Inn, and it's pretty little on the sus side. I see 42 people on board. Keep clicking thumbs up, driving more people in. John acknowledges the generous fellas. Samuel Benton is on board. Good to see you, Samuel. Stayed in 2 choice hotels plus some others on my week-long rip trip through Utah. I like the fact that other people are using the term rip trip. 2 choice hotels might have been my favorite ones. Definitely some gems out there. Awesome. What chains of choice were they? Was it Quality Inn, Sleep Inn, Cambria? Cesar has arrived. Mi hermano. Good to see you, mi hermano. And Luke Johnson says, the gifted memberships are rolling again. I received one 2 weeks ago. Thank you. A lot of people saying hi to one another. Luke says, what's up, boys? Watching from the Escape Lounge. Beginning of a long day. Oh, cool. Which particular Escape Lounge, Luke? Would be glad to hear. I think there's only 2, but refresh my memory because I don't really remember. Juan says, Fort Dodge, Iowa is where my company is building a new plant that goes live end of the year. Luke is in Columbus. I guess that's his home airport, so that makes sense. There's probably more than 2, aren't there? How many escape lounges exist nowadays? That's like the minor league Centurion Lounge. Am I remembering correctly? Correct me if I'm wrong. Rewards Master says, I might get a divorce if I book a Quality Inn. I hope not. Luke says, I see we're talking about choice. I have a Radisson Red and a Cambria booked this year. Awesome. I know for a while I was kind of dogging you that you had, gotten the choice credit card, but not used any points. So I'm sure hoping that works out for you. Report back and let us know. And Nick says Uncle Luke is sipping on one of those fruity drinks, or maybe Luke is thinking of Luke as he sips on a fruity drink, some sort of fruit punch or Hawaiian punch, something like that. Undoubtedly. Samuel's 2 favorite choice hotels he stayed at recently were a Comfort Suites and a Mainstay Suites. John says, I'm staying at a Cambria in Rapid City in August. Is that Rapid City, South Dakota? That has an interesting tie-in to the theme of the day. Luke says, I am correct. And TM Cowling says, there are 2 escape lounges just in Phoenix. Okay. And Dad says something very similar. There's definitely more than 2. I must have been thinking of something else. I was probably thinking of the Capital One landings. I apologize. Luke says, coffee for me. I never really drank alcohol at the lounge. Probably a good idea. And Dad mentioned says, same thought, TMC. All right. Moving on to the next Dugroz data point here. This is Dugroz Eats. We're actually going to have a couple Dugroz Eats segments today. There is a small chain of restaurants in the greater Des Moines area called The Chicken Coop. And I actually ate there for the first time in my memory, at least recently. Had a regular old cheeseburger, but it was good. You got the ranch, you got the fries. Hopefully I'm going to make you hungry this morning. And there's the burger cut in half to see the quality. That is perfection in my mind. A little bit of pink, but not bleeding. Mwah, just right. Congratulations to the chicken coop. Last week, I mentioned there was an offer out on the Aeroplan card, increasing the sign-up bonus. It's normally 60,000 points, 75,000 points temporarily with, what was it? 4,000 of spend. Hat tip to Doctor of Credit here. And just to prove that I do occasionally put my money where my mouth is, player 3, my mom signed up for the Aeroplan card. Instant approval, so that was awesome. I won't go into lots of details here, but you might remember my parents are in assisted living and might be transitioning into a Medicaid facility sometime in the future, so they kind of have to run out of money. And our lawyer advised me, don't get cash back credit cards, get credit cards that earn like airline miles or hotel points, because the Medicaid people don't care about that. They won't consider it an asset. Whereas if you have $100 of cash back, they will count that as an asset. So Aeroplan seems to fit well. There's going to be a little bit of a gray area related to family pooling points and then using it for pay yourself back. But I think I actually signed my mom up for an Aeroplan account more than 6 months ago because I anticipated this. You have to have your Aeroplan account open for at least 6 months to be able to do family pooling. But I think as long as they all originate with Chase for what you're using for pay yourself back, that there's no problem with that, is my speculation. I'll catch up on comments just a little bit here. Dad on a Mission says Escape Lounge in Phoenix Terminal 4 has the same food as Centurion, so that's where I take my family. Always a good experience. John says he wants a bacon cheeseburger and it's all my fault. Kirby says burger at the chicken coop, blasphemy. I get that. Can't get any more fresh. That does look pretty fresh. And TM Cowling says, thanks for the tip, Dad on a Mission. I may try that one on Monday if I can't get in the Chase Lounge. Yeah, my in-laws live in Arizona, so I should be flying into Phoenix a few times in my life moving forward. Next Dugroz data point here is, there we go. This is just a personal data point, something I noticed. And I normally don't check the channel description on my own channel, but for some reason I did. I probably need to update some of this information. But what was interesting is I didn't even know it. Apparently I have now passed 500,000 lifetime views. So mild pat on the back to me for having 500,000 views on my Dugroz Reports channel over the lifetime of the channel. Now, some of my Dugroz data points come from contributions from viewers like you. Feels like PBS or something. And I did a video when it was first announced that Citi would let you transfer your points to I Prefer. And I said something like not quite ready. A viewer named Kevin G. Wartney, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, but if it's Kevin Gwartney, I apologize, came in and said, I just booked the Londoner in London for May 2025. Cash price of $3,000 for 4 nights, but transferred 55,000 Citi points to book it. So let's do the math here. 3,000 divided by 55,000 points. That is 5.4 cents per point, which is, got to show my big screen here, 5.4, almost 5.5 cents per point. So that's very respectable. And then I asked him to report back once he's had the trip. That original comment was 4 weeks ago. And here is Kevin's response. Had a great time at the hotel. Once we arrived, I inquired if they had any upgrades available. They bumped us up 3 room categories to a junior suite and gave us a 4 p.m. late checkout. I couldn't tell if they're used to people booking hotels with points, as they were about to charge my card for the full amount. I had to point out the fact it was booked with points, and then they went to their manager to speak about it. So that's a good idea. The one time I stayed in an I Prefer hotel using points, the Salamander Resort in Middleburg, Virginia, they weren't real familiar with booking with points. They said something like, yeah, we've never had anyone book with points before. You're the 3rd person in 2 weeks. So it's kind of a new thing to them. And they didn't seem to quite understand how it worked or what status I was entitled to. So you might have to kind of coach them with I Prefer, but my hope is as more and more people do this, it'll become more and more familiar to various hotels. Chad Pennycuff has arrived and says, morning all. Thank you. Good to see you, Chad. Liam Ritchie says, I have almost 300,000 Chase points and over 100,000 Amex, and I'm afraid to spend them. Well, that's what they're there for. They're there to use. And Kevin Hawthorne says, good morning from Lakeland, Florida. Good to see you. And some people saying hi to each other. Liam says, I'm good at earning, but burning is kind of intimidating, and I'm a saver by nature. I get that. Texas Dog says, howdy. Good to see you, dog. Hey, 57 people. That's pretty good for this time in the live stream. Keep clicking thumbs up. Rex Blind has arrived and drops a $1.99 super chat. Celebrate, indicating that I got mentioned on Frequent Miler. Yeah, a few people have mentioned that. Thank you to everyone that has. We're going to actually take a brief look at that a little later in the show. Nick says, I was surprised that the Discover status from my Hyatt credit card got us an upgrade at this Cancun resort. That's good, because you wouldn't think Discoverist is like that big of a deal. So I'm glad to hear that it sure did. Got to blow my nose here, folks. I apologize. Brief moment. It's that time of year where allergy and asthma is kicking my touche. Although I certainly admit that it probably feels like to most of you that that's always the case. QC Man, quality control on board, says, good thing he caught them almost charging him again. Responding to Kevin Wartney's comment that I put on the screen here. Yeah, well, quality control, man, given that you control the quality, I'm sure if it was you, you would have definitely caught it. John R says, 61 watching. Let's get 61 likes. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Moving right along in the Dugroz data points here. Another personal data point, mostly just amusing. Last weekend, this was the evening of Sunday going into Monday, which was Memorial Day. I had work off. And right around this time of year, we've got lots of things going on. My wife's birthday, anniversary, Mother's Day are all in the month of May. So that's kind of a big deal. I decided to honor my wife by giving her a day all by herself. And I asked her, do you want to go to a hotel, or do you want us to go to a hotel? And she said, I want you to go to a hotel because I want my bed, my couch, my television, my books, and I don't want to pack. So I said, okay, I'll take the boys to a hotel. So we stayed at the Hyatt Place in downtown Des Moines. And here's a picture of my boys playing in the pool. This was just a one-night getaway. We had fun. And Mom got a quiet evening and morning to herself. We stayed out till about 2:00 the next day. So she could just do whatever she wanted to do, read books, watch old-timey movies, that kind of thing. But in the hotel, on the wall of the pool, there was this sign: take frequent bathroom breaks, keep pee and poop out of the pool. All these children pooping in the pool. And then there was another picture just right next to it that said, don't swallow pool water, thirsty for some water mixed with germs, pee, poop, sweat, and dirt? Probably not. How much are people peeing and pooping in this particular pool? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, okay, I admit toddlers and babies probably pee in the pool a lot, and a few adults do, but I don't want to think about it. You don't have to keep advertising it. So that was just weird. I wish they'd take those signs down. What do you guys think? Is it better to have the signs, or is it better to just say, hey, we all know this happens, let's let it go? All right, I got to catch up on comments. Looks like we've got some stuff going on here. Rex says, blasphemy that Greg pretended to not know who you are. I wanted to reach into the tube and bop some sense into him. That's talking about the frequent miler thing. And then, oh man, Mike Newland comes in strong one more time and gives 20 more Dugroz memberships, another $60 equivalency. Celebrate. Mike, thank you so much. You are certainly not obligated to do that, but I do appreciate it. We'll definitely take it. That's really helping to advance things, especially on the last day of the month. That'll bring my revenue way up. I was hoping to get at least $500 this month, and I'm confident it'll be over that. In fact, we're probably going to clear $600 pretty easily. John says, Mike. And then to help acknowledge this, QC Man, celebrate, comes in with one membership. John R. congratulates me on good husbandship. And we're laughing at each other about the pool with all the truckloads of poop and pee. Rex Bleen says, guilty. Given we just talked about poop and pee in a pool, I'm just going to move on here. Luke Johnson says, my wife's birthday and our anniversary are in May also. I think to myself, as someone straight out of college, I was like, oh, I want to get married in May because all of our friends will go home for the summer if we don't get married like within a week or two of graduation. But in hindsight, being married to a teacher and having birthday, Mother's Day, and anniversary all during the month of May maybe wasn't the best choice in the entire world. Liam says that as a former competitive swimmer, I can confirm lots of peeing. John says, note to self, don't stay at that hotel when in Des Moines. The Hyatt Place, downtown Des Moines. You can stay, just don't use the pool, maybe. Yuri says, I like to pee in pool in front of San Francisco City. Moving on here. Rewards Master says, thanks for making time for me during your staycation. Yes, I forgot to mention, you can find it in my community tab. On Monday morning, Memorial Day, I recorded not a live stream, but sort of like a non-live stream with the Rewards Master. It was recorded live, one take all the way through, but shared after the fact. So check out the Rewards Masters channel if you're not sure how to get there. Just look up my community tab, and I shared a link to it 3 or 4 days ago. Contrasting styles. So the Dugroz style and the Rewards Master style are very different, but that makes the game more fun. Texas Dog says, we don't swim in your toilet. Please don't pee in our pool. I'm going to skip a few comments laughing about pooping and peeling and just saying hi to each other. Yes, San Francisco has a lot of public defecation, apparently. All right. Too Easy says, that was a good video. Hopefully talking about Rewards Master. Thank you. QC Man, how many points did the Poopy Pool Hotel set you back, or was it an FNC? I got 2 rooms, one for me, one for the boys, and it was category 2. So I think that's normally 8,000 a night, but this was off peak, which is kind of weird going into the morning of Memorial Day, but the hotel was like dead. I think people go to like barbecues and friends' houses, but don't necessarily travel a lot on Memorial Day. Because it was off peak, it was 6,500 per room per night. So very reasonable. Brady Smith says, good morning, all. Glad to catch you live. Thanks, Brady. Appreciate it. I saw your comment on the community tab, and I'll get to that towards the end of the live stream today. I'm going to pull an audible here. I wasn't going to do this, but so many people have mentioned the frequent miler thing. I feel like I need to address it here. So let's go ahead and do that now. So Ian M. pointed this out to me on Discord, although lots of other people did as well, not just him, said, Dugroz Reports had a few shout-outs in this episode. So this is the frequent miler that always comes out on Fridays. I liked it actually better when it came out on Saturdays, but Fridays are fine. And then he also gave me the timestamps there. And is this comment the same thing? Nope, that's a different one. Whoops, backing up here. Okay, so I got to look at 11:40 and 34:12. In times past when I've tried to share audio on YouTube, it works, but I can't control the volume. Ian suggested I do a live react, so that's what I'm going to do. I haven't actually watched this yet, so I guess we'll all find out together exactly how it goes here. All right. How do I play this in? Share this tab. I hope this works. If you can't hear, let me know. Here we go. I don't think they'll copyright strike me.
All right. Next up, Dugroz Reports gives us a tip about Wells Fargo or some information about Wells Fargo. So Dugroz says, I have both the Wells Fargo Visa signature from around 2007, the Golden Ponies card, as it's often known. I did not know the Golden Ponies card, but cool. As well as the current autograph. So an old Wells Fargo Visa signature and the current autograph. Yes, they do work together just fine. Since they're both point earning cards, there's just one pool of points for all your cards that earn points, similar to Citi or Amex. So yes, you can earn 3x on the autograph and then use those points at 1.5x in the portal for airfare for an effective 4.5% cash back equivalent, all with no annual fee. So again, that old card enables the ability to redeem points at 1.5 cents per point towards travel booked through their travel portal. So what Dugroz reports is...
Yeah, I think flights specifically, but yeah.
Okay, flights, there you go. So is reporting here is that you could earn 3x on the autograph card and then essentially use it for 4.5 cash back towards flights with no annual fee. No point moving needed. I also have the Wells Fargo Business Signify card. Since it's a cash back card, its earnings don't go into the pool of points automatically, but you can easily convert cash back to points at the normal ratio on their website or in the app. So it's all pretty seamless. As an aside, my wife only has the business Signify, and she can't move cash back online to another card holder, neither as points nor cash. So we can't combine her Signify rewards with any of my Wells Fargo cards at present, at least not online. We've not yet tried calling in together. Who wants to do that? My dad has an autograph too, and his points can be sent to me online. So it appears the key to share points with another person online is that you must have at least one point earning Wells Fargo card, autograph, a grandfathered signature, or autograph journey, presumably. I'm considering getting an autograph or autograph journey for player 2 just so we can have a fully combinable Wells Fargo household. This was fantastic information. So I know there's a lot of reading there, but the moral of the story is that apparently you can move points online from one autograph card holder to another. And if you have an autograph card and some cash back earning card, you can convert the cash back to points and then transfer on to Wells Fargo's transfer partners, which they have a pretty limited set of transfer partners, but they do have some transfer partners that can be quite useful. And they have 1 to 2 to choice privileges, just like Citi. So there's certainly a number of use cases where that could come in really handy, especially if you got one of those old Wells Fargo cards that gives you additional options in terms of redemption.
Yeah, that's it's really good information from. Now, how'd you say his name again?
I think you pronounce it Dugroz Reports.
Dugroz.
Yes.
Dugroz. Am I saying that right?
Yes, because I pronounced it differently at some point, and I hope I'm getting it right this time because I know you corrected me.
Okay. I'm asking because I think we have another one from him later on.
Hopefully I got it right both times for Dugroz Reports.
All right, let's move on to booking travel.
Okay, well, the mispronunciations were pretty amusing, but hey, that is an honor. I really appreciate that. And Mike Newland and Quality Control Man both said the sound was fine. So let's skip ahead here. I need to remember, Ian reminded me 3412 is the next timestamp. With YouTube, it'll probably send these guys a message that says something like, somebody else used a portion of your video. Do you want to make a claim on it? So I just have to hope they're kind enough to not make a claim on it. So let's see what the next part is here.
We did talk about during the show was how under certain circumstances, having more people reduces the fare. Like, it's a really weird random thing that happens. I don't think we've figured out why.
Oh, okay. I know what this is. So the topic is sometimes booking with certain airlines, Delta specifically. If you book more than one person, you actually get a lower rate per person than you do just booking solo. That's what they're talking about.
Or when it happens,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Dugroz, is that right?
I think so.
Dugroz Reports says on, again, he says last week's show, but he wrote this a million years ago, so who knows when the show was. On a past show, Nick mentioned that sometimes airlines charge less per ticket when buying for multiple people versus just one ticket. Well, this week I was looking for a repositioning flight for the summer and was discouraged when the price I found for a Delta flight was more than I was expecting based on some prior looking. Then I realized that I had mistakenly only selected one passenger. Sure enough, the exact same flight, exact same date, exact same fare class was $219 versus $178 per person with one person versus 4. So this is just an example of what we talked about happening in real life. And I double checked at the time when he wrote this that it was in fact working exactly as he said. He gave enough detail to just run that same search. The per person price was about $40 less when you search for 4 people instead of one person.
Yeah, and so it makes sense because they're probably just looking to charge last minute business travelers or business travelers in general as much as they can, figuring the company's paying for it. So the business travelers are less price sensitive, whereas folks traveling as a family may be more price sensitive and they got to be competitive with other airlines. So it's just wild to me, though, that the algorithms are set up so well to recognize those situations. It's amazing what they're figuring and the math that they're running behind the scenes. But it's a great reminder because I am lazy about searching for airfares.
I think I got the idea there. Thank you so much, Ian, for pointing that out. Well, that's a lot of fun. I feel like I am mildly to moderately famous. I'll try to pause it when Nick has a better facial
almost always, sir.
That's better. Okay. Let me catch up on comments here. Sorry that took so long. Now, can you hear me okay? Where were we? We talked about the poopy pool and how much it costs. Yuri says, I was in a Hyatt Regency in CDMX, which was also category 2, and it was $6,500. Thank you for verifying that I got the price right. Nick says, to Chad Pennycuff, I got our Disney World vacation all booked for Mardi Gras 2026. All right, sound was fine back when we were watching Nick and Greg. Josh Butler says, hi, good to see you. Excuse me, I said that wrong. There's a YouTuber named Josh Butler. This is John Butler. Don't think we've met before, John. Glad to have you on board. Chad says to Nick, let me know the dates. Dong says we should have all worn Hawaiian shirts to match. Absolutely. And hey, look, it's Carl S-1363. That sounds like your name is a stormtrooper or something. S1363, why aren't you at your post? TK427, do you copy? TK427, why aren't you at your post? TM Cowling finished that episode of Frequent Miler right before hopping on here. And Juan Garcia says, Doug, with the shout out on FM, you're officially big time. Congrats. I actually had an entire article written by, about me on Frequent Miler probably 2 years ago by Nick. It's kind of hard to describe, but basically we were talking about the pros and cons of using Southwest points versus paying cash for Southwest. Nick was kind of picking on me, but he picked on me with permission. So any publicity is good publicity. I agreed to take it. It's called something like looking through rose-colored glasses, if you want to look it up. I like how Greg knows he's saying it wrong, but doesn't know how to fix it. The funny thing is, I'd specifically emailed a pronunciation guide to Nick 2 years ago when I did that. It's Dugroz. R-O-Z is clearly Roz. Props on the shout-outs. Thank you. Appreciate that, Vincent. Good to see you on board. They got your name wrong, I noticed yesterday. And Luke says, am I the one who thinks they are big leaguing Doug? They know who he is. Oh, like they're doing it on purpose? Like, oh, I've never heard of this person before. It would be like me saying, Luke's Points and Miles. Oh, it's probably one of those newer channels. I'll have to check it out. Which, of course, I would not do. Texas Dog says, way to go. Thank you. Yuri BSU says, good morning. Happy to see you on board. Chad said, oh, that's about him and Nick joining up. Never mind. Fly and Ryan says, too bad for the masses. They follow the flashy generic advice we already know. Dugroz is underrated. Well, hey, with the generous gifts from multiple people like Mike Newland, although others as well, maybe that'll change in the not too distant future. Yuri says, Nick and Greg and Nick are great. I've met both in person. I've not met them in person, but definitely my favorite blog in the world of points and miles. Flying Turtle says, do you think they're aware of any YouTube content creators, or do you think they operate in a bubble? I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question, Flying Turtles. And a bigger question that I've wondered is, like, it seems like I'm in a specific circle, like the people who would generally go to like the creator meetup, the one in New Orleans, the one in Las Vegas. That's kind of my circle. But there's like these other tangential circles kind of going, like GeoBreeze Travel has like a circle of influence over here. Ask Sebi has a circle of influence over here. And it's like Venn diagrams. I mean, sometimes they overlap a little bit, but not necessarily too much. Luke says, if they mispronounce your name, then you know it's big leaguing, but I think it's an honest mistake. I think it's an honest mistake, too. I mean, how many emails do they get? They can't remember every single one of them. All right. Let's move on with other Dugroz data points here. I'm trying to remember which one we're on. Oh, we're on Wyndham. Okay. Wyndham is the theme of the day, kind of. But before I get into that, I want to correct something I said on a previous episode, a mea culpa or a wea culpa, as they call it. Frequent Miler, hat tip to them. Buy Wyndham points for as low as 0.81 cents per point each. And this is good through June 5th. So you don't have a whole lot more time to go. But there was something I said on last week's live stream that after I had a little time to think about it, I took it back. Let me know if you thought of this too. So I don't have a city Prestige or Premier, either one right now. But there is a bonus right now where you can transfer your points 25% from City to Wyndham, 1 to 1.25. And I pointed out, since I only have the Rewards Plus, which will be going away soon enough, and a custom cash, that it's normally 1 to 0.8 with the 25% bonus. All it does is bring it back up to 1 to 1. And I said something like, I've got a handful of Wyndham points, maybe 4,000, 8,000, something like that. And I want to use them before my Rewards Plus card goes away, which was in July, to get the 10% bonus. So I said, I'll probably just take advantage of this Wyndham thing and transfer them out to that. That way I'll get my 10% bonus and I'll get 1.1 Wyndham points for every point I transferred. But then I realized, wait a minute, that's dumb. I should just cash out and buy them at 0.81 cents per point. The math actually works out better there because if I buy in at 0.81 and I get 1,100 points, that's $11. 11 divided by 0.81 would get me 1.35 Wyndham points for every one I buy. Whereas if I just do the transfer bonus, I get 1.1. Does that make sense? So if I do the transfer bonus from City, for every Wyndham point I transfer over out of City, I lose 1 City point and get 1.1 Wyndham points. If I just cash out my City points and use them to buy Wyndham points while this is on sale, I get roughly 1.35 Wyndham points, which is better for every City point I cash out. A lot of math there. Hopefully that all makes sense. Luke says, they do this for a living. They know who all the creators are. Frugal Dad Finance says, I thought there would be no math today. Gerald Ford, as played by Chevy Chase voice, I was told there'd be no math. I mentioned there's going to be 2 different Dugroz Eats segments today. Have you ever heard of Bennigan's restaurant? Bennigan's was a chain with like 150 locations around the United States at their peak, which was probably late 90s into the very early 2000s, like 2002, 2003. Now they're down to like 21 locations. And one of them is here in Des Moines, Iowa. Technically Urbandale, Iowa. It's right on the border between Des Moines and Urbandale, which is a suburb, and it's connected to a Holiday Inn. And I went there on the Sunday before Memorial Day, before we went to the Poop and Pee pool with my boys, and we ate there, and it was amazing. I asked the waitress, "Why do you think this one has survived?" And she said something like, "I thought there was only 15." Whatever. She said, "Well, Holiday Inn bought the restaurant when they went through bankruptcy, so." Basically, Holiday Inn keeps this Bennigan's afloat. Interestingly, I asked her, like, is this the restaurant where people with status get their free food? And she's like, well, I know I get a 50% employee discount. Basically, she didn't understand the question. That's okay. So we ate at Bennigan's and a couple different items. I had the Monte Cristo, which is like ham and turkey fried into a breaded sandwich with cheese and a little bit of powdered sugar, and you dip it in cranberry sauce. And of course, it comes with fries. It is so good. I hadn't had one in like a decade, but it's amazing. And then one of my sons had chicken strips, but the other had a hamburger. And it was a pretty good hamburger, cheeseburger. Had some onion rings on it, and that was good too. So really like Bennigan's. Chad Pennycuff also sent me a message and said, did you try Death by Chocolate, which apparently is like a chocolate cake with 4 different kinds of chocolate, and you can even get a la mode, which is French for with mode, with your Bennigan's dish. So, yep, still getting hungry, hopefully. Let's take a quick look here. Where were we? Nick says, still talking about Disney World. Kirby says, Butters is a huge Bennigan's fan. I don't know who Butters is, but that's okay. Yuri says, I've never transferred to Wyndham. I have a hard time keeping them from expiring since transfer to Caesars are now limited to 30K. That is a good reminder. There's 2 different kinds of expirations with Wyndham. On a rolling 18-month basis if you don't make any transactions. But if you have one of the cards, like the Wyndham Earner Business Card, just buy a stick of gum at a gas station and that'll renew that 18-month rolling period. There's also a 4-year hard expiration. So if you don't use your points 4 years from when you earned them, they will expire. So a pretty generous expiration policy, but an expiration policy nonetheless. 72 people on board. That's pretty good. Keep clicking thumbs up. Gentleman Explorer, don't think we've met, says Bennigan's was our spot in high school. What about Hennigan's Scotch from Seinfeld? Don't remember that one. Texas Dog says, I read that Bennigan's and Steak and Ale are both coming back. Interesting. MR says, Brannigan's had an amazing Monte Cristo sandwich back in the day. That's probably Bennigan's. And then the fact that you mentioned it 30 seconds after I posted it is amazing. That Monte Cristo is quite a thing. Yuri G says, I earned quite a bit of Wyndham points, which I earned with the Wyndham Earner Business Card. Absolutely. Rex says, nothing beats the Super Bird at Denny's. Awesome. I am simultaneously lowbrow and highbrow, so I will love a good Denny's or something like that. Dad on a Mission says, yes, I love that place. My wife is from Urbandale, right there on Merle Hay Road, right by the mall, although that mall, among others, are kind of a shadow of what they once were. Nick says, you don't know Butters from South Park? Now that you mention it, I've heard the reference, but don't know much about it. MR had no idea it was still on TV. Yuri says, you don't need to use the Wyndham card because they give you $15K every year, and that keeps the 18 months alive. Oh, good point. Good point. I want to use it, but you wouldn't have to. So that's a good reminder. Thank you. QC Man asks, is Bennigan to Irish food what Olive Garden is to Italian food, or Bennigan's higher quality? I'll be honest, I have no idea, QC Man. I'm sorry. Probably yes, but I'm American, so Americanized Irish is good with me. Monte Carlo from Bennigan's is so good, says Juan. On board, we have Katan Al-Kasi. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Has anyone got the offer of 50% off buying Choice Points? And if you use Choice Select MasterCard, you'll get an additional 10% plus 2% Amex points from Rakuten deal. I had not seen it targeted all the way down to 50%, but I do have some information on that a little later, Katan. So if you just hang in there, that'd be great. Ian says, sorry for being late. Had to set up a hotspot to be able to watch in the wild. Understandable. I already followed your suggestion related to watching Frequent Miler and getting the live reaction. So thanks for that, Ian. Flying Ryan says, I remember the Coralville Mall Bennigans. Oh, yeah, that was another one. Coralville is a city in Iowa, very close, actually touches Iowa City. Too Easy says, what's the price needed for Vacasa to use Wyndham points? $300 per room per night? We'll get to that a little later in the program. Hang in there. Dugroz, you were on Frequent Miler. Thanks, David. We already watched that and laughed about it. And Mike Newland says, excuse me, I combined Bennigans with Newland. Mike Newligans. Mike Newland says, Bennigans never changed their menu, which is a death sentence to restaurants. Well, keeping the Monte Cristo was the thing I was excited about. And then there was kind of a side joke. So back around like 2002, I went out to eat with some people from work, and there was one guy who was like 10 years older than me. They have a burger called the Big Irish Burger, which is a pound of beef. It's 2 half-pound patties. And I said, I'll have the Big Irish Burger. And this guy, his name was, I don't remember his name. He said, fun fact, Doug's nickname actually is the Big Irish Burger. So I told that story to my boys, and when we got there and saw they actually had a Big Irish Burger, still, they were pretty excited about that. MR says, I always push my Wyndham points to Aeromexico so I could use them to fly Delta. Redemptions are crap, but if you're pro Sky team like I am, it's a great push to everything in one place. I get that. All right. Next, Dugroz data point here. Scrolling along. We talked about Bennigans. Oh, we have one anniversary. I clicked the wrong button. We have one anniversary to celebrate today. It is not that. Happy Tom. So Happy Tom joined as a Dugroz diehard 12 months ago. Thank you for celebrating 12 months of channel membership, Tom. I really appreciate that. Hey, Katan asked about the Choice Privileges targeted sale. Now, I'm not sure how much it's targeted, how much it's not. I think this is sort of the general offer, but I got an email saying that you can buy Choice Points for up to 30% off, and this goes through June the 20th. I logged in. I didn't actually buy, but I checked it out to see what it comes out to. In order to get the full discount of 30%, you have to buy at least 12,000 points. So I got to zoom in. My eyes are getting old here, folks. $86.52 will buy you 12,000 points. And I wrote down here in my own writing, that comes out to 0.721 cents per point. So you'd be buying in at 0.721. I did a video a year and a half ago that said, if you are moderately cherry picking, not super cherry picking, but pretty seriously cherry picking, you can value Choice Points at 1.25 cents per point on average. I averaged out like 10 or so properties. So if you buy in at 0.721 and redeem at 1.25, that's pretty good. I checked on one particular redemption, and this is because you can use choice points to book preferred hotels, not all of them, but many of them. One of them that I found was called the Fitzwilliam Hotel in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Not going there, but I really want to. I love that Irish type music. There's a content creator named Lisa Dawson that I follow from Northern Ireland, and she sings beautiful traditional music from that area. Now, if there's a doorman or two and they're wearing top hats, it is pinky in the air fancy. So doing the math on this one, I just picked a random date. I didn't take a lot of time to look into it. I think it was somewhere in June. The cash rate that day for their lowest level room, which was an executive king, was $268, including taxes. And you can buy the points for $187. So that's a pretty decent discount. You just buy the points using the deal they have going on. Go to the Fitzwilliam, and you've instantly bumped yourself up from $187 to $268. That's roughly $80. I did also note that because you can transfer from City 1 to 2 to Choice Hotels, this is the Choice version, not the I Prefer version, by the way. You would get 2.06 cents per point, which I think is a little better. So if you already have the choice points, probably using them rather than buying new ones is the way to go. But if you either want to save your city points for something more valuable, same thing with Wells Fargo, actually. Wells Fargo transfers 1 to 2 to choice. So if you want to save your Wells Fargo or city points for something more valuable, just buy, you can definitely do that. Gonna bump up here, gonna bump up, gonna bump up here, gonna bump up. Yuri says $250 per bedroom per night. Oh, that was about Wyndham. We'll get back to that. Katan says, I got 50% myself and all my family members of 3 people as choice card holders, and I purchased so far 180K points in 2 different accounts. To be honest with you, if I had a 50% offer, this math would be a lot better. I can do the math real quick here. Let's use the same property example. So if I was buying in at 50%, that would be, I hurt my neck just by moving slightly. I don't know the exact number, but mental math tells me somewhere around like 0.65. That's what I'll say. So to buy enough points, I would need 26,000 times 0.0065. It would be around $169 if you had Catan's deal. So that's even better. That's pretty good. Craig Howard says 3-year-old and twin newborns in 5 weeks. Any tips? Oh boy, Craig. I do have twin boys, but the only thing I can say is that I didn't get into points and miles till they were about 10 or 11 years old. So I didn't really have a lot of traveling. If you want to look me up on Discord, I'm on both Stack Your Points and the Venture Discord. I'd be happy to speak offline. Catan says 180K chase points for $927 plus 10% of the $927 plus 2% in Amex from Rakuten. Oh man, that's pretty good. GB says, excuse my tardiness. Excused. What hotel was the Bennigans connected to? If it was Hilton, then a good way to use the Surpass credit. I wish. No, it's a Holiday Inn, so that'd be IHG points. I don't feel tardy. Let's see. They're not as bad as we thought. This is about twins. I'm going to skip over that just for the sake of time. And let's see. Yuri says, that's a lot of money, but I'd rather transfer from City. I get City points much cheaper. Yeah, but Yuri, are you the Yuri that has 10 custom caches, or is that the other Yuri, or do you both have 10 custom caches? Tim McDonald's 49ers fan is here and says, thank you, Mike Newland, for the membership. I was tardy today. Woot, woot, Team Diehards. Glad to hear you're on board now, Tim. And we're talking about twins. That's awesome. Yes, awesome. Okay, next Dugroz data point, a personal data point here. I stopped by the Tractor Supply Store. Tractor Supply Store is kind of like a Home Depot, although it's smaller, it's more rugged. It's really for people that are like ranchers and farmers. They've got sections where you can go buy like wire fences for your cows, and you can buy chicks and that kind of stuff. But in the Tractor Supply Store, I don't normally stop in there. I had to buy some windshield wipers, and I was in a big hurry, so I went there because it was closer. For the first time ever, I noticed they now sell third-party gift cards. I didn't look at all of them, but if you zoom in on the picture, bottom right, I see Amazon gift cards. We've got some of those giftcards.com, the dumb ones we don't like. a lot of their own gift cards. We've got Let's Eat gift cards. But then most importantly, we've got the Visa and MasterCards that go up to $500 each for a $6 or $7 purchase fee. So I'm not exactly sure what Tractor Supply codes as. Because I wanted to do some experimentation, I had to buy 2 separate sizes of windshield wipers. So I bought one windshield wiper with my Capital One Venture One card. I didn't have my Venture X with me, so yeah, it wasn't great value, but I just wanted to see how that coded. And that coded as automotive and gas. They do sell automotive supplies there, like car batteries, light bulbs, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if like on the Wyndham Business Card, it would code as gas. Some experimentation is definitely in order there. And then the other one, I used my Altitude Reserve, and I haven't even looked yet. Let's see how it coded, if it even tells me. It doesn't say. Oh, category shopping. Well, that's pretty generic. So some more experimentation is in order. Have you ever used like a Citi card, a Wells Fargo card, a Chase card at a Tractor Supply company? Did it code as gas? That could be awesome on a rotating category with the Freedom Flex if that comes up. Oh, where were we? Catan says the Choice Select MasterCard does offer 10% back for purchasing the choice points. That's good to know. Very good to know. Yuri says, yes, I'm the custom caches, but I also have Sears, which earns more than the 10 custom caches. That's a grandfathered card. You're just making us all jealous here, but thank you for pointing that out. We're talking about traveling with boys and kids. I traveled a lot, and I'm sure I'll use it all, he says. Gentleman Explorer says, I got rubber horse mats for garage gym at a Tractor Supply store. That seems like the kind of thing they would sell. Supplies for your horses and tractors. Flying Ryan, cashier thinking to himself, sheesh, this guy's used 2 different cards for wiper blades. I hope he's doing okay. That probably is what she thought. I'm convinced if there's a few people in the greater Des Moines area that think I'm like the world's most nerdy drug dealer. Yuri says, you need to download CSV from US Bank to get exact category. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Maybe you can let me know offline. Nick says, horse stall mats are life for my home gym. Interesting. Who knew that mats specifically designed for horses are so popular for people who like to work out? And last but not least of the Dugroz data points today, the IHG Premier Card, Hat Tip Frequent Miler, came out with a banging offer. It is 5 free night certificates valued at $60K each. Now, they do point out that these certificates cannot be topped off. So unlike the 40K anniversary night certificate, you can't add points to them. That makes it much harder to maximize, as you'll most likely end up using them for something less than 60,000 points, Frequent Miler says. But that's a pretty good offer on a $99 no annual fee card. Even if, let's just say, for the sake of example, you use them on average for a property that costs $250, take that times 5, that's $1,250 in value. Subtract out the $100 roughly annual fee, and we're talking somewhere around $1,150 in value, all for a new sub. So that's something I'd have to consider. I already have the card, so I can't get it again, but the missus could. So that's worth considering. 86 people on board. Please click thumbs up, and please keep dropping those super chats. Nobody's done a 99-cent super sticker yet. I'm always good with those also. Nick says, the people at Tractor Supply, at least mine, already know by looking at me I wasn't buying horse stall mats for horses. Bro, do you even lift? Hans and Franz, we are here to pump you up. Old SNL reference. All right, that takes care of that. Let's go ahead and get into our theme of the day, or sometimes I call it topic du jour or main event or whatever. Ian reminds people to click the thumbs up button. I'm going to start first and save the bathroom break for a little later. Oh, I closed my sharing button. I'm getting there, folks. I really am, I promise. There we go. The path method, live stream, and here we go. Last week I talked about the path method for everyday spend in points and miles, and that's Forest Ranger Dugroz there wearing his sombrero, pointing out that you need to stay on the path when you're playing 8-bit video games. Much like that, in the world of points and miles, you need to stay on the path to make sure that you have something of a cohesive strategy when it comes to everyday spend. Previously on Dugroz Reports, we'll do just a little review. So I'm not going to go over each point in detail, but the reason I came up with the path method was to address a problem that we tend to have in points and miles. And that problem is big shiny object syndrome for spend multipliers. For example, when the card drives the goal rather than the goal driving the card, such as 4x on your Amex Gold, 4x on your Wells Fargo Tune, 6x on your Hilton Surpass, 8x on your Wyndham Earner Business. Don't go out and get the card just because they have a big modifier if you don't know how you're going to use it. Now, here's the solution. The path method, which is an acrostic I came up with. P, you pick your travel goals. A, you assess your ecosystem options. T, you tailor, correct spelling, thank you, Luke, tailor your point earning to your spend, and then you harvest your rewards. Now, a couple disclaimers. This is all highly personalized. What's important to me is going to be different than what's important to you. This is a basic framework. It can change and adapt, and this is not regarding subs. This is not for sign-up bonuses. This is everyday spend. So when we think of P, you have to pick your travel goals, and the best way I can illustrate this is to give some examples. So here's some examples of things that might be your goals. They aren't necessarily my goals, but you have to personalize this. And yeah, you probably have to have traveled at least a little bit. One of two things: either you've been in points and miles for a year or two and you know what you like, or you traveled a lot before points and miles, you know what is important to you. So maybe things like road trips are things you want to do. Maybe you want premium cabin flights like international first and business class, which is different than road trips, although you might like both. Like I said, I'm simultaneously highbrow and lowbrow, so those both appeal to me. Maybe you want economy trips. You're like Dustin from Waller's Wallet, and you'd rather have quantity than quality. Maybe you like upscale hotels like the Fitzwilliam in Belfast, Ireland. You want to make sure you're always in a fancy hotel. Maybe you want international travel. Forget traveling around the United States and seeing national parks. You want to go to the Eiffel Tower. You want to go to the Tower of London. You want to go to South Africa and see a wildlife refuge. It's all international for me. I think the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the grandpa says he is like an imaginary world traveler, like in his brain. And he says, the posh traveling life, the traveling life for me. If anybody knows what I'm referencing, let me know. Maybe you're like me and you want little to no out-of-pocket expense. So you're going to have to kind of work in some cashing out of points or cashback cards or bank account bonuses or all those things. Some other examples might be family travel. You've got twins on the way plus a couple toddlers, and you're like, oh man, I'm going to be traveling with 6 or 7 people here in the near future. And you really want to take your whole family. That's a noteworthy goal. Maybe you're loyal to one brand. You're a Hilton fanboy. You're a Marriott fangirl, whatever. Maybe you want to take many small trips. I know Uncle Luke has said, I have no problem doing lots of 3 and 4 day getaways. That's a noteworthy goal. Maybe vacation rentals are your thing. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Maybe you like upscale lounges. You want to get those escape lounges and Centurions and Admirals Club. Maybe you love one particular airline. These goals can vary based on the person. I'll pause for just a moment and catch up on comments here. Sorry, I got lost here. We already talked about that. I said $99 no annual fee card. Apparently I said that, and once again, QC man coming through with the quality control. Y'all knew what I meant. Thank you. Luke said, I just want to share this with Doug. Here at the lounge, a girl went up to the bar and got a fancy mixed drink. She took pictures of it and her holding it and then set it down, never took a drink. Cheers, Luke. That's the kind of thing that makes me laugh out loud. Have fun in it. Luke, have fun in, I think that's Italy. Is that Italy? You going to Italy, Luke? Awesome. Had a good bit of people doing the same thing here at this resort in Cancun. Tweety said, hope you don't see any whales, Uncle Luke. I think I know what that means, but I'm not going to elaborate. Quality Control Man says, this is what happens when Adam's daughter grows up and gets lounge access. This. Flex culture. Adam's daughter's flexing to her dad. I feel weird just taking pictures of my hamburgers at Bennigan's sometimes. All right, whales, whales. I'm sure they're talking about beautiful blue whales, sperm whales, dolphins, that kind of stuff. There's a joke I heard once. It goes something like this. A man from America is traveling in Europe, and sitting at the table right across from him are two young ladies. They're just a touch overweight. And he's trying to be friendly. He said, "So, where are you two ladies from?" And they say, "Wales." And he said, "I'm sorry, where are you two whales from?" Okay, I'm sorry. Let's move on with the main event here. Where were we? Next screen. We're going to be talking about vacation rentals today. You've got the Dugroz colored arrow pointing at it there. So we got to take a little side trip here. But as it relates to picking my 4 goals, they were these 4. This is what I settled on, kind of help you see where this is going. Number 1 was I want to stay at lots of Hiltons, and that was last week's topic, and I released it as a standalone video yesterday, so go back and check that out if you're interested in that one. Number 2 is non-chain lodging. We're going to start down that path today. Number 3 is flexible domestic flights, because I'm going to be mostly traveling within the U.S. once we get past this summer, and I live in a small market, so I can't really afford to be loyal to one airline. I want to fly whoever, some combination of getting me there promptly, fewest layovers, best time, and a decent seat. And then rental cars. I like driving to out-of-way places like President's Graves and waterfalls, so you just need to rent a car. So those are my 4 goals for second half of 2025 into 2026. Again, we're going to be focusing on this one today, the non-chain lodging. Today's example goal is, in fact, non-chain lodging. And I mentioned last week 4 of my favorite places I've ever stayed while traveling are not chains. We had a boutique motel in Ashland, Wisconsin called the Blue Wave Inn on the shores of Lake Superior. The Koru Mountain Lodge, tiny house in West Virginia. The Lundy Lodge, booked through cottages.com in Wales. And the Loft in Accra, which is upstate New York. Why are vacation rentals so clutch? It's because of the laundry sandwich. And what do I mean by the laundry sandwich? So if you put a chain hotel on the front end, a vacation rental that has a washer and dryer in the middle, and then another chain hotel or standalone hotel, even if it's not a chain, on the back end, you've got your laundry sandwich. I've found, whether solo or with a family, but especially traveling with kids who, let's face it, spill ketchup and ranch on themselves all the time. There's a tip for you for the guy having twins. Use the laundry sandwich. Having access to a laundry machine halfway through your stay is pretty clutch. So that's what I call the laundry sandwich. I like to mix that into the middle of many trips. Here's a picture of me with laundry. Here's a picture of me holding a sandwich. Last week, a viewer named Bobby Y said, if you make a channel t-shirt that had a laundry sandwich on it, I will buy it. So I didn't put a lot of time into this, but I did ask Adobe Spark to make me with a laundry sandwich. And there were some that were just plain creepy, like me with a weird stretched out arm holding laundry. And I don't know what it was trying to do, but this was the best one. It thought laundry and a sandwich, but hey, I kind of like it. What do you guys think? Vacasa. So we're going to talk about Vacasa a little bit today, and I'll get into what they are a little bit later. But just to let you know, it's basically a vacation rental that you can book using Wyndham points. I looked at the Redwood coast of Southern Oregon and Northern California, so north of the San Francisco Bay, and I just did a filter for properties that have both laundry and an ocean view. So I found there were 203 that have both, and that's pretty good. One example here is the Fish Bowl, which looks very nice. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom property. Here's a little more info about the Fish Bowl. Doesn't that look nice? That's a place I'd like to go, and there they are in all their glory. Washer and dryer right there in the utility room. It is kind of an indirect or partial ocean view. You can see if you look straight out, this must be like a sunroom on the side of the house. You're looking at another cabin, but if you kind of look like this, oh yeah, there's the Pacific Ocean right over there. You can see the ocean. That's a place I would love to stay. So now that you know what the laundry sandwich is, I have a question for you. How seriously should I take Bobby Y's comment that if I made a channel t-shirt that had a laundry sandwich on it, you would buy it? Maybe this image, maybe some other image, but I kind of like this one. Laundry and a sandwich. Maybe I could even write laundry sandwich along the top. Just imagine walking around with a shirt of some guy with laundry and a sandwich. Oh, that would come out to. So if you're watching this after the fact, not during the live, but if you're watching this non-live, if that's something you would seriously consider, if there's a 50% or better chance you would actually do that, put these emojis down below, type laundry, type sandwich, and just do laundry sandwich. And those two emojis together, no words necessary, and I'll gather interest. And if there's enough interest, I'll look into it. I've never looked into merch. I know there's buttons on the YouTube content creator thing where you can order t-shirts and pens and stuff. I've never actually tried it. I don't know, $25, $30. I have no idea, but I'm willing to give it a try if there's sufficient interest. Again, only if you're at least halfway serious. Let me catch up on comments real quick here. Haven't done that in a bit. See where it goes. Doug and his Wales jokes. Disappointed, no Welsh accent. Wales. I don't remember what it was with one word. Okay, I'm going to imitate it. So I ran into this lady in a restaurant, and she was like, to be honest, you have a very strange accent to me. I think you're the one with an accent. That was terrible. I apologize to everyone from Wales. Ian says, I do not suggest putting sandwiches in the laundry. MR says, that's a great hero pose. I don't know. Oh, I get it. Hero's a type of sandwich. Cesar says, I appreciate you, but I would not buy a picture of you with Pounder. Okay. And then Catan says, if you like it that much, you should visit this hotel, Schutensbaden Yacht Club. Okay. Is that in California? I'll have to look into it. Ian thought my accent was great. Oh, I appreciate you, but would not buy a picture of you with laundry and a sandwich. Thank you for your honesty, Cesar. I appreciate that. So just Bobby then. That's fine. Moving on. Let's assess non-chain lodging a little bit and different ways to earn. So option one is pure cash back. So you just earn cash back on any cashback card. You got your 5%ers, you got your 4%ers, you got 3%ers, and then you just straight up buy the property. You don't even worry about a loyalty program or a portal or anything. You just buy it. Option two is One Key loyalty and earnings. So One Key is the rewards program for Vrbo, Hotels.com, and Expedia. My wife has the One Key card, which gets me, I think, gold or platinum status or something like that. So that's something I kind of started looking into. I'm still working on it. Option three is a Chase portal or something similar to Chase portal. Now there's other portals. Capital One has one. Amex has one. Chase is the only one that pops to mind right now where you can get hotels at that 1.5 level if you have the CSR and 1.25 if you have the Inc. Preferred or the CSP. So that's the one I'm going to focus on. Oh, there's that rib thing. Like 3 months ago, I pulled a ligament in my ribs, and every now and then I do a gesture or something and it hurts. So the problem that I have here is by nature, non-chain lodging varies wildly in how to book. And, you know, with Hilton's, it's sort of like, all right, you've got cash, you've got buying points, you've got your Hilton cards, you've got your Amex transfer. And if you take the time, you can be very very objective. Whereas with non-chain lodging, there are some places where you can't book it with any portal. You can't book it through Expedia. Like you have to, I saw one where the only option was to call them. And I'm like, whoa, that's old school. There's a couple places around here in Des Moines. There's one called the Bavarian Inn, which used to be a Best Western, but now it's standalone. And there's just like, you know, a sign out front that says call us for daily rates. So sometimes that comes up. Some you can book through partners, some you can't. So it's just really hard. Some have their own website, some don't. Some you can book through Expedia, through Trivago, through TripAdvisor, through what's the other one? Kayak, Orbitz, but don't have their own website. Some have their own website, but you can't book third party. Some you have to call. Some you can book on the Chase portal, some you can't. Some you can book on the Capital One portal, but not the Chase portal. It's just wildly variable. That makes it very hard to do apples to apples comparison. Another thing that makes apples to apples comparison is like when you go to Google and look on a map for like hotels in the area, you click on one hotel and it'll say like, here's how much it is through Expedia, through Orbitz, through Trivago, through Hotels of America or something like that. And it'll show you all kinds of different prices. Well, some display with tax and some don't. Some I have found to be very cheating. Like they'll say let's just say Expedia lists it for $150 and Hotels of America says $130. Like, oh, that's $20 cheaper. But you click on it, it's $130. Then they add a $20 booking fee. So it ends up being the exact same price. So there's a lot of funny business going on. And then will it code as travel if you book direct? So if I book the Bavarian Inn directly by calling them, what's my confidence that the guy at this little local chain hotel even set up their credit card reader properly? Like, for example, a place that maybe used to be like little shops in a bookstore, and when they converted their shop rooms to a hotel, they never updated it. So you think you're going to get 3x on travel on your CSR, but it codes as a bookstore and you get 1x. So there's all sorts of wild problems in the world of non-chain hotels. Let's view a few comments here. Ian says, Pounder, is that like Mr. Punisher from the Diddy trial? I'm not going to go there. Katan also suggests the Oscarborg Fortress in Norway and the first one in Sweden. I'll have to look those up later. Thank you. The US Bank Altitude Reserve also has 1.5 cents per point. That's something I will factor in a future episode. Thank you. MR is craving a McRib since I hurt myself. Ian thinks it's always wildly disappointing. Luke says ribs have ligaments. I have no idea, Luke. I'll be honest with you. They probably don't. You and my son, one of them, is kind of gotten into the world of lifting and fitness. You should coordinate someday. Jehovah has arrived, which sounds kind of funny to say. It says, this is true. I'm assuming you mean like it's hard to do apples to apples comparisons. Ian thought the same thing about the ligament content. Call your congressman, chat. New Again says, just made it. Good day to you all. We talking Wyndham? Nice. We're about to get there, New Again. Thank you. I appreciate that. So moving along here. Speaking of wild variations, let's talk about Vacasa. The wildest variation of them all. Sorry, I have to blow my nose again. What is Vacasa? It needs its own show, and I think I've talked about it before, so look through some of my old live streams and maybe we'll find out about that. A good way to say it is just what they said on their website. Stay your way. From family-friendly resort condos with pools to luxurious beachfront villas, Vacasa has a home for every traveler. And the example they use is homes with pools, lake houses, family vacations, condo rentals. I will also add they have a lot of cabins out in the woods and in mountains and near national parks and that kind of stuff. So this would be standalone properties that are generally not part of like it might be part of a building like a condo with lots of units, but it's not going to be part of a non-chain hotel. It's its own thing. So think of Vacasa as something of a competitor to Airbnb, probably a little more like a competitor to Vrbo. So I don't know all the details, but my understanding is behind the scenes, most of these Vacasas are still independently owned by a local owner, and Vacasa is the management company that handles the booking. They may or may not handle the property management and the cleaning as well, depending on the arrangement. Now, I know Vacasa is huge in the Gulf Coast, so like down along the Gulf of Mexico / Gulf of America, whichever terminology you want to go with, like Pensacola, Florida, Mobile, Alabama, Gulf Shores. Is it Gulf Shores, Mississippi? Am I saying that right? But that area kind of from like Panama City Beach over to not quite Louisiana, truckloads of Vacasas. In fact, I'm pretty sure Vacasa owns, those are corporate owned Vacasas, not locally owned. They have entire condos, entire townhouse complexes that are owned by Vacasa. There's a few where there's like a giant, just like you'd see Holiday Inn, there's a big Vacasa sign out front. How is Wyndham involved? Well, Wyndham has a partnership with Vacasa, And they say you can book your Wyndham Rewards trip with Vacasa by calling them directly. And to be a little more specific on that, you'll want to know how much is it. I'll just read. Participating Vacasa home rentals require redemption of over 15,000 or 30,000 Wyndham points per bedroom per night. The point requirement inclusive of taxes and fees comes out as follows. If the average cost is $250 or less per bedroom per night, the redemption requires 15,000 points per bedroom. If the average cost is $250.01 up to $500, the redemption requires 30,000 points per bedroom per night. If it's more than $500 per bedroom per night, you cannot do it. It also says down here, not including the Wyndham Reward Earner cardholder discount. So just to summarize, you can use your Wyndham points at that 15,000 per bedroom per night tier, as long as it's $250 or less, to book Vacasas. And I know calling in can be intimidating, but I've done it 4 times now. It wasn't really a big deal. One of the times they were able to do it right there. A couple of the times they were able to do it over the phone. A couple of the times they had to like put a hold on it and then do a check and email me back like 24 hours later. I think the idea is some people list their homes on more than one platform, so it might be on Vrbo and Vacasa. So what they have to do for the people that list on multiple platforms is do that double checking. Whereas if they only list on Vacasa, they don't have to do the double checking. There is a discount if you have any of the Wyndham credit cards. We've got the no annual fee personal card, the Earners Plus personal card, which is I think $75 a year. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. And then the Earner Business, which is $99-ish a year. You get 10% off the points cost if you have any of these 3 credit cards. So you take your 15,000 points per bedroom per night, subtract out 10%, and that comes to 13,500 per bedroom per night. And let me give you an example. Let's say you have a 2-bedroom cabin and you're staying 3 nights and it's under that $250 threshold normally. You would take your 13,500 points times 2 bedrooms times 3 nights, and you come up with 81,000 points to book that. So another thing I'll mention is the Earner Business Card gets 8 points per dollar at gas stations. Don't need to get into a lot of details on that now, but we'll come back to that a little later. All right, what do we have for comments here? Redneck Riviera, got it. Is that what people call the Gulf Coast? Oh, we're talking anatomy. Okay, I know that one. Yes, ribs do have ligaments. Yuri G has stated a Vacasa in Pensacola Beach and Myrtle Beach. Awesome. Nick says, every time I see Dugroz, I think of the song Du hast by Rammstein. Dugroz. Never heard it, so I'm just guessing that's how it goes. Gulf of America. Says Nick. Yuri says business is $95. I was close. Thank you, Yuri. I appreciate the confirmation. Ooh, 3 people dropped off, so click thumbs up or drop a little tiny super chat or a giant one. And maybe we'll get back over 80 people again. When we get into the nerdy math, some people drop out because their brains just can't handle it. So what are some Vacasa limitations? What are some Vacasa limitations? I talked about how amazing it is. Let's talk about some drawbacks. One drawback is apples to apples comparisons can be tough because they're often not available elsewhere. So it's hard to say, well, if I booked this through Trivago, it would be this much, but if I book it through Vacasa, it's this much. Not always, but most Vacasas, I'd say well over half, maybe 3/4, maybe more than that. I haven't done a ton of research, are only listed on Vacasa. So it's hard to do price comparisons. And then another drawback is they're not available in some areas. So you'll see I took a screenshot. I searched for, I think this is properties with laundry machines. And then I just zoomed in on the southeast of the United States. And I'm sorry, this is probably really hard to see because I didn't make it very big. Let me see if I can make this larger. Not much larger. Florida, there's quite a few. There's a ton on the Redneck Riviera here. I can't tell how many. And then we got a few along the coast like South Carolina, Georgia, the area around Southern Virginia, Tennessee, Gatlinburg, Atlanta, there's some, but like the rest of Georgia, nothing. Other than the Gulf Coast, Alabama has nothing inland, nothing in Mississippi other than the Gulf Coast. So unless you want to stay in the very, very, very bottom part of Bama or Mississippi, you've got nothing. The entire like western half of Tennessee, nothing. West Virginia, nothing. The value varies based on the time of year, etc. So because you've got that 250, 500 threshold, in theory, to get the maximum value, although it's kind of silly to think of it this way, if you want to get the maximum value, you would want to get as close to the 250 without going over as possible, as close to the 500 as possible without going over. You want to play Bob Barker. Spin the wheel, see who can get closest to $250 without going over. Dugroz has $247. That's hard to beat. So it's awesome because it's a fixed price. So let's say on what's a popular time to travel? I'll say Labor Day. Labor Day weekend in a national park, the good news is if you can find it for less than $250, it's still going to be $13,500 per bedroom per night. It doesn't vary. It's a fixed award chart. But if it's over $250, that bumps you into the next category. So now the value is going to drop. And if it's over $500, you're not going to be able to get it at all. So there are times where it's a great value, times where it's a lousy value, and all sorts of things in between. Vacasa advantages. So first advantage is when available, it can be great value. In fact, if you max out, like you get right at $249.99, that comes out to 1.85 cents per point. And remember that Earner Business Card that I mentioned earlier gets 8 points per dollar. If you take that times 1.85, that's the equivalent of earning 14.8% cash back on your gas station spend. It can be easy to earn the points. So I kind of gave the lead away there. It's easy to earn them on that Earner's Business Card. You can also buy points like we saw earlier in the video. And there are some very nice properties. Now, I've only stayed at 2 Vacasas so far, and they're both pictured on the screen here. So on the right is a cabin in the way northern part of Wisconsin. Like you could throw a rock and hit the UP of Michigan, called the North Woods. It was 1 bedroom, even though it's gigantic because they had a loft and they didn't count that as a bedroom. So plenty of room for my kids. There's my wife and one of my boys on the porch. The other one didn't want to come out for a picture. Kind of built on a hillside. They had kayaks. There's a lake behind us. It was amazing. Now the electricity went out. That wasn't cool, but not really their fault. And then on the left is another cabin in Wisconsin. That's more like the middle of Wisconsin. Stayed there with my boys for a boys rip trip getaway. We went fishing, we went hiking, did some manly stuff. That one wasn't quite as nice, but we're talking like a 92 instead of a 99. It was still very nice. If I remember correctly, this one was called The Cabin. This one's called Annabelle Lake Lodge or something like that. I don't remember. But both were very, very nice. And I had a great time and got tremendous value. They were both 1-bedroomers. So for today's comparison, I had to come up with 4 places that I want to go using Vacasa. And for the most part, I tried not to be biased. I tried not to cherry pick fully. I thought of the places I wanted to go and then applied it to a Vacasa. Now, I know there's going to be some places you can't do Vacasas, like downtown Washington, D.C., but this would be good for like national parks, beaches, that kind of stuff. So let's see where I want to go here. I haven't seen a comment in several minutes. So if somebody could just make a comment so I know that people are still on board, I would appreciate that. Here's the comparison. So first we have the Florida Keys. I want to say Aruba, Jamaica. Ooh, I want to take you. I think there's a mention of Key Largo in there. Yeah, there is. Key Largo, Montego, something like that. So we're going to go to the Florida Keys for one of them. We're going to go to Thomas, West Virginia. That's the only one of the group I've been to before, which is why I used a picture of myself. We're going to go see Mount Rushmore in Rapid City, South Dakota, that general area. And then the fourth one will be the Redwood Coast. This would be the area of California or the very southern part of Oregon, right along the coast, but north of San Francisco. I did a Google search and it said there's a couple acceptable nicknames for that part of the country. Redwood Coast was one of them. You can see in the picture there's lots of redwood trees. I don't know if those are redwood trees. Maybe those are pine trees. Whatever. They said that's what it's called. If anybody from Northern California is on board and can correct me, please do so. First, we'll start by looking up the Florida Keys. All right, we had 3 people make a comment so that they know it's working. Nick says, baby, why don't we go? Part of Kokomo. The Florida Keys. So I found a property there called the Perry Hotel and Marina, Key West. This was just a Google search. This was not on Vacasa. So I am going to see if I can get the Perry Hotel using Vacasa. This is like a standalone hotel. It's a group of condos, that kind of thing. August 23rd and 25th through 25th, 2025. And specifically, I want the grand suite because I'm thinking, like, what if my kids are with me? I'm going to want a suite. Ignore the price here because that's for their cheapest room. These are the real prices. So if you go cash direct to the hotel, it was through a website called like Great Hotels of America or something, $1,213 over here. If you go through Expedia, which is part of the One Key program, almost the same, slightly more expensive, $1,230. If you go through the portal, $1,614. We're talking with Chase, or you can use 97,681 points. Now, in parentheses, I put 31% markup compared to the cash direct rate. It'd be slightly less, but still 28 or so with Expedia. Chase, that's not cool, I gotta say. That's actually a huge disappointment. I mean, think if you had the Chase Sapphire Preferred and you thought, oh, I'm getting 25% more value. No, you're actually losing value. You'd be better off just cashing out your Chase points and getting it directly with the hotel. What's the point in a 25% bump up if you're going to overpay by 31%? So shame on you, Chase. All right, now I need to note one thing. The Perry Hotel Grand Suite is part of the edit by Chase, and maybe that's why they have you overpay by $384. The edit is sort of like the hotel collection is over at Amex. Hotel collection and Fine Hotels and Resorts, where you get some stuff with it. So what are you going to get if you go through the Chase portal? You're going to get daily breakfast for 2. You're going to get $100 property credit. You're going to get a room upgrade at check-in if available. You're going to get early check-in and late checkout if available. I never like to see the phrase if available. To me, that's basically like saying you're not going to get it. And I just think of it as a pleasant surprise if I do. Because I don't travel that much, I'm out getting this kind of hotel maybe 3 to 7 times a year. I want a sure thing. I'm going to be really bummed out if I travel 6 times and 3 of them I don't get an upgrade. To me, that's just rage inducing. So I'm going to say the upgrades of room type and early late check-in aren't even a thing. I'll consider icing on the cake. So if we think I'm overpaying by $384 and I get a $100 property credit for spa treatment, tokens in the arcade, meals, whatever. All right, now I'm overpaying by $284. I'm only staying 3 nights. I hope that daily breakfast for 2 is really expensive if it's going to get me $384. Now, if you think you're staying 3 nights, daily breakfast for 2, that would be 2 times 6. So 284 divided by 6, that would be $47 a day. Admittedly, you know, $47 a day, $47 per meal. So per person per day. There are lots of places where, yeah, you can easily spend $47 per person on a meal, but I bet you can go to a nice little local cafe or boutique restaurant and eat for way under $47 per person. Those are my thoughts. So again, just a reminder, Chase Portal, $1,614 with a 31% overpayment. Now, that particular property, the Perry Hotel, is not available as part of Vacasa. So what I did was I went out to find the closest I could to that hotel. And I found one also in Key West called the Atlantic Parrot. This is, instead of a suite, it's a 2-bedroom. Now, it's kind of a 2-bedroom. I wish they wouldn't call it that. That seems a little bit like cheating because it's more like you have a den with a living room, and they're counting that as a bedroom because there is a futon. And then there's like a side room with like a big open area and a curtain you can pull. To me, it has to have a door for it to be a bedroom, but they classify it as a bedroom. So that's what I have to look up. Looks pretty nice. There's a pool. I don't think it's quite as nice as the Perry, but I'd give it a B. The Perry's an A. This is a B. It's still pretty good. Look what we got up here. We got laundry machines, so we get to make that laundry sandwich. This is $922 or 54,000 Wyndham points. And that comes out to 1.7 cents per point there. I think I did the math wrong. It's only a 2-night stay, so I'd have to redo my math on the eating here. Should I do that? 284 divided by 4. So we're talking $71 per meal. That better be a lot of food and beverage from overpaying that much. So you see the previous screen was $1,614. This one might be a B instead of an A, but it's only $922. What was the cash price? $1,200. So I'm still saving somewhere around almost $300 if I book directly with Vacasa and settle for this or my 54,000 Wyndham points. Don't worry, at the end of this, I'll do all the math and comparison and break it down with the aggregate cents per point and all of that. I'm catching up on comments here. When I said nobody made a comment, several people did, and I really appreciate that. Ian says to all of us that my uncle, not Luke, has a home in Key West. It's a very nice. It's a very nice down there. Clairvoyant says, I've always wanted to experience what a hurricane is like without having to actually be in danger. Interesting. Cesar says Chase portal prices are quite high. Ian says, I've been in a few hurricanes. If you've got a good structure and it's not spawning twisters, you'll be fine. The weather is amazing to experience. Cesar says, I've noticed portal prices inflated most times. I wonder, I have found it's less bad on airfare. I think it's a hotel thing. Ian says, my dad was mayor of our town during Sandy, and we didn't have power, water, gas for months, and it drove him mad. A lot of people talk about hurricanes, which is cool. I'll come back. I'll let you guys read that at your own pace. Absolutely. No harm in that. All right. Let's get to another one here. Let's say I want to go to West Virginia. The Koru Mountain Lodge was a tiny house that I stayed at in Thomas, West Virginia. Let's say I want to book it again for my fall rip trip, and this time I'm shooting for October 1st through 3rd, 2025. Here's some pictures. Very cozy on the inside. I had a great time. It was only one night. I wish it had been more. If you book it directly, it's only available on Airbnb. That's $475. You're not going to find it on One Key. You're not going to find it on the Chase portal. You're not going to find it on Vacasa. In fact, specifically, there was almost nothing available in that whole town. It's a very rural area. There's like 5 or 6 Airbnbs, and that's it. This is the town closest to Blackwater Falls. So if you want to spend a lot of time at the waterfall, you don't have a whole lot of options. There was not a single Vacasa property available. Hello, West Virginia. Calling West Virginia. It's like Bueller, West Virginia. So I went out and did a search. There's not a single Vacasa in the entire state of West Virginia, which is actually too bad because I've said before, although a limited sample size, 2 different trips, West Virginia, 2 different trips on points and miles. I also went there once in college. 3 trips to West Virginia. It's my favorite domestic trip in the United States in terms of place to go. They do have like 53 places in the panhandle of Maryland, which is kind of weird, and 42 in Western Virginia, but nothing in West Virginia. So take me home, country roads. Nope, the country roads will not take you home. All right, let's move on to Mount Rushmore. And let's say November 3rd through 6th, 2025, I found a boutique hotel called the Roosevelt Inn. And again, this is the cheapest room. I want a little nicer room. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was maybe a 1-bedroom king or something like that. Paying cash directly with the place is $398. If you go to hotels.com, which is part of One Key, it's the exact same price. That's nice that One Key is the same as booking directly. If you go through the Chase portal, you got $497. So Chase decided to inflate the price by 25%, or you can use 33,143 points. Again, if you have the Chase Sapphire Preferred, you might as well just cash out your points at a penny each because you're not going to be any worse off. At least you're earning something on whatever card you spend on that way. Isn't that just disgusting. If you have the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you do come out a little better, 33,000 points instead of 39,000 that would be necessary on the cash out. But yeah, once again, the Chase portal really disappointed me. Now, here's a bonus on this one. The others I didn't look up the Capital One portal or search it, but the Capital One portal had this property also. And while there was a markup, it wasn't as bad as Chase. The markup in Capital One was only 14%. I also know the Capital One portal advertises price matches. So I wonder if you could prove that you could get the exact same room booking directly with them or through hotels.com. Either way, if they would bring you down to that $398 price. My understanding is yes, but if anybody has any nuances or caveats with that from personal experience, by all means, please let me know. One more time, going to get into comments in here, and then I might need to take a quick break. Nick says, almost heaven, West Virginia. Nick says, even though I'm almost positive that song is about Western Virginia and not West Virginia, I agree with you. Somebody did a breakdown on YouTube once, like all the features listed, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River, are more known by Western Virginia than West Virginia. But apparently John Denver decided, to the place where I belong, Western Virginia, wasn't as catchy. Ian says, LOL, West Virginia, no thank you. Mike Newland says, lots of whitewater rafting in West Virginia, done it numerous times. I went water rafting, not whitewater rafting, with my whole family, like right before I got into Points and Miles, like right around 2019 in Missouri. That was great. I wouldn't want to do whitewater, but the real gentle water I'm good with. David says, please let me know about the Tractor Supply. I spend like $10K. I have the Tractor Supply card, but if I can get Wyndham or something like that, that would be nice. I will let you know. I just need to go in with my earner's card. I need to go in with like every credit card and buy like a bolt or something from their hardware drawer. Like, all right, that's 38 cents. All right, please put it on this card. Why is this guy using 12 different credit cards? Is he a drug lord? What do drug lords do with hardware? Something like that. I'm going to do a little bit of a audible here. No, I'm not yet. I'm going to go over the Vacasa equivalent. So we already mentioned that that's what you would have got. Excuse me. That's what you would have got using just searching for a boutique hotel you like. But if instead you go with Vacasa, the closest I could find that was acceptable was this cabin called the 2-Bit Cabin in Deadwood, South Dakota. This is 2 bedrooms, and this is a legit 2 bedrooms. And there's a picture of it on the inside. It looked very nice. Now, of course, you're not going to get free breakfast. You got to take that into consideration. You're going to get your laundry sandwich. I believe I checked for laundry on this one, but don't quote me. In Vacasa, this one was a cash rate of 823, or if you use your Wyndham points, that's 81,000 Wyndham points. That comes out to 1.02 cents per point, which is not as good. I usually value my Wyndham points at 1.25 cents per point at least, because all the bookings I've made have been that good. You know why this is a low cents per point. It's because it's November 3rd through 6th. It's not exactly peak time. Now, if you back that up to Labor Day weekend or even summer or 4th of July, you're going to have a different story. Now, for the sake of as close to apples as I can get, I'm going to stick with this date, but I just want to show you the difference. Instead of November 3rd through 6th, if I asked it for August 13th through 16th, maybe like right before you go back to school, now the math comes out to $1,417. It's that same 81,000 Wyndham points. That's the huge advantage here. It's a fixed rewards chart. That comes out to 1.74 cents per point. I don't remember what that came out to. 2 bedrooms, 13 to 14, 3 nights. So we've got 6 bedroom nights. So I got to take 1,417 divided by 6. I am bumping up pretty close to that $250 maximum for the first tier. $236 per night. So we're getting kind of close there. So that's what it would be. Again, I'll come around at the end of this and bring it all together to help you know how to think about this properly. I do need to take my biology break right now. I certainly apologize. Usually I wait till after the main event is over, but maybe I drank too much water. Please, 64 of you, stay on board until this is done. You'll hear some copyright-free music. I'll come back and finish the main event, and then we'll get into our community tab questions. Let me pull up some copyright-free music, and here we go. All right, almost back. Just got to take my asthma medicine. Thank you so much to the 62 people who stayed on board. I really appreciate it. I was thinking while I was using the bathroom, and yes, I always wash my hands, that if you're staying on board this long, you're either a true fan, a diehard possibly, or you're someone that has nothing better going on. So I'd like you to put comments over here. If you are watching this from any place that is public or kind of public, other than just sitting watching it at home or something like that, let me know where you're watching. In a restaurant, on a train, on a plane. Maybe you're at work, but you have the kind of job where it's kind of boring and you popped in some earbuds. I'd be interested to know where you're watching. Nick wants David to buy a horse stall mat or that's what I should buy maybe to test things out. I'm guessing those are a little more than $1, so probably not that, but that's a funny reference point. Maybe I'll just ask the cashier, hey, do you have a lot of gym bros coming in buying horse stall mats, or just people who like exercise? You don't have to be a gym bro to like exercise, or vice versa. MR's watching at home. Let's see who has the most unique watching situation. Okay, so that was Mount Rushmore. And then last but not least, the Redwood Coast. And the more I researched this, the more I got jacked about it. So let me know if you have ideas. I'm going to start by zooming in on the Viewcrest Lodge in Trinidad, California. That's that northern part of California. This one says it has like an ocean view, but it's actually like a half-mile inland. So I wonder if it's like, well, if you stand on this one hill, or we built a viewing platform and use binoculars, you have an ocean view. Booking directly with the property was $667. The one key hotels.com was $737, so a little bit of a markup. The Chase portal was $794. So the markup's not as bad this time. It's a 19% markup compared to the Cash Direct and an 8% markup compared to hotels.com. Or you could use 33,143 points. This is also not available in Vacasa, so I found something that was kind of a similar equivalent. I should have mentioned these are like lodges, like, you know, it's a place with lots of cabins. Everybody gets their own cabin. They have hot tubs. This one does not have a hot tub, but what it does have is this one is right on the ocean. Now, this is like a shared property. It's sort of like a row of townhouses where there's 6 or 7 townhouses together. All of them have a front that faces the street or parking lot, and the back faces the ocean. So yeah, you would have, Frank and his family from South Dakota over there right next to you making comments. So it's not going to be totally private, but it's semi-private. But man, I want to go out there and sit there and look at the rocks and hear the waves come in. The interior looks pretty good. It's not like super fancy, but it's homey. That's fine. It's called the Whale Rock Suite, and it's unit number 1. Like I said, there's 7 or 8 different townhouses there in Trinidad, California. This one's classified as 0 bedroom, meaning like it's just one big open room, and the bed is right there in the living room. Like I said, there might be kind of a canopy and a curtain or something like that. There's also another futon or pull-out mattress or something, so the family could make it work. This one I'm probably thinking would be just a couple's vacation, me and Mrs. Dugroz. If you book through Vacasa, it would normally be $736, but it would also be 40,500 Wyndham points. This one comes out to 1.82 cents per point. So this was really close to that maximum value you can get on the low end. $750 would be the most you can get for 3 nights. So like I said, I was not completely cherry picking, but within the range of where I wanted to go. I mean, of course I cherry picked. That's how we all do it. We all cherry pick to some degree, right? If we know, like, I want to go to Trinidad, California, and I'm going to pick a hotel, you're not going to be like, well, I'm just going to pick randomly, or like, I always stay at the Hampton Inn. Maybe you will. But if you're picking among different chain hotels, you're going to read the ratings, see what's nicest, and some combination of price, features, location, value, reputation, etc. You're going to take all those things into consideration. So in that sense, yeah, I'm cherry picking. Not to get the maximum value alone, but some combination of value, nice place, looks good, etc. So I call that moderate cherry picking. Of course, you're going to do some cherry picking. Let's go over the totals here, and I'm going to exclude West Virginia since there was no Vacasa. I feel like that is a big drawback that you have entire states. Like in Iowa, where I live, there's no Vacasas. There's no Vacasas in Iowa. There's no Vacasas in West Virginia. There's a couple other states like that. I don't think there's any in North Dakota. There are in South Dakota, but not North Dakota. Interestingly, there's some in Canada, there's some in Mexico, and there's some in Belize, but not Iowa or West Virginia. So I'm going to take that out, acknowledging it's a drawback, but I am going to take that out and do some comparison here. So Key West was $1,213. Mount Rushmore was $398. And the Redwood Coast was $667 when I'm booking the cash properties. And I always went whichever one was lowest. So if I'm just doing cash back, I'm just paying cash, that would bring me to a total of $2,278. And yes, I will come back to a comparison so you can see it all on one screen. I do apologize. There's not any cool graphics at the end here because I was up till 1 o'clock in the morning working on this. So my desire to add cool graphics waned as the night went on. The totals with Wyndham, excluding West Virginia, were as follows. Key West was $922 or 54,000 Wyndham points. Mount Rushmore was $823 or 81,000 Wyndham points. And the Redwood Coast was $736 or 40,500 Wyndham points. Now, in some ways, the cash part is relevant for making sure it qualifies for the 250 or 500 maximum, but it's really not relevant for our dollars or our apples to apples comparison, because unless you're going to pay cash for a Vacasa, which you could, but what I'm thinking of, like, I just want a boutique hotel and I found one that was close enough. You really got to compare the actual cash rate to the how much spend do I need to get it with Wyndham level. That would be a total of $2,481 or 175,500 Wyndham points. If you remember, the Mount Rushmore one was kind of a bad value. The other two were really good, so it averaged out to 1.4 cents per point, which is definitely in line with the 1.25%, definitely in line with the 1.25 cents per point that I use for generic valuations of Wyndham points. Because I'm a conservative guy, I use conservative valuations. Let's stop and think of how I'm going to attain this. So remember, this is an excursion, an excursus from the path method. I looked up the definition of the word excursus. It means you're going to step aside from the main topic for a while, work on it, and then come back. We will come back to the other parts of path, my domestic flights, rental cars, and boutique hotels alone. But I had to take this little excursus to know how I'm going to deal with Wyndham. You'll remember part of path, the assessing option, or the T, tailoring your spend, is you got to know how much you spend. I'd already set certain categories like Amazon and dining aside for Hilton, although I can always readjust that. Where is my spending going to come from? So I've calculated that I spend around $4,000 a year on gas, and that's both gasoline, breakfast pizza, anything you might buy at a gas station. I spend $25,000 a year on everything else. So let's just say I dedicated half of my everything else spending to using Vacasa credit cards. Those two combined would be 16,500 points. If I use all of that at gas stations via strategic gift card buying, take that times your 8 cents per point, that comes out to 132,000 Wyndham points. Now, some of you know exactly what I mean by strategic gift card buying. Some people don't. So instead of, let me give you an example. If I'm going to go to Hy-Vee and buy groceries, Hy-Vee is a grocery store here in the Midwest. They also own their own chain of gas stations called Fast and Fresh. And I know with certainty that with both Wells Fargo and Wyndham, Fast and Fresh's code as gas. I've done this before. I can walk into the Fast and Fresh, buy a Hy-Vee gift card. Let's say it's $100, get 800 Wyndham points because it's 8x, walk across the parking lot into the big Hy-Vee store, which are often right behind the gas station, and buy groceries. And instead of getting whatever I get on my favorite grocery card, maybe 3x on the Saver card with Capital One, which I don't have, but I'd like to have. Instead of getting 3x, I'm getting 8x Wyndham indirectly with strategic gift card buying. Some of it might need to be those $500 prepaid Visas and MasterCards like you saw at Tractor Supply. I do have gas stations in my area that I know of that sell those. There's not a lot, but there are some. If you're willing to accept that level of strategery, this is not manufactured spending. This is just strategic spending. You'll come up with 132,000 Wyndham points a year. Now, consider also just by having the Wyndham Business Card, Yuri mentioned this earlier, they gift you 15,000 free points every year just by paying the $95 annual fee. Now I've got 147,000 Wyndham points. On the previous screen, I said I need 175,500 if I want to do all three of these trips in one calendar year. I'm getting pretty close. I'm within 30,000 points. So you might want to take advantage of that 0.81 cents per point sale and buy the other 30,000 points you need. But I'm getting real close to getting everything I need with spend on that Wyndham Business Earner Card. I am going to come back around to comments, but since I'm on a roll, I just want to finish the theme of the day here. How much would it be for the full amount? If I want to hit my full target of 175,500 points, I would take that amount, because that's what I need. I would subtract out my 15,000 anniversary points that I get automatically, and I need to spend my way to 160,500 Wyndham points if I want to take all three of these trips, domestic trips, in one calendar year. Again, if we're willing to do strategic gift card reallocation, I just divide that by 8 by using my Wyndham Earner Business Card. By the way, I've done that many times. They've never given me any grief whatsoever. I've never had an account review. I've never even had a phone call, text, nothing. They're just like, cool, man. I mean, it is a business card, so they assume businesses will buy large amounts of stuff. That comes to $20,000 and $63. I almost said $20,063. $20,063. Let's just call it $20,000. So I have to spend $20,000 in a year to hit all of my Vacasa goals for this hypothetical future year. I'll say 2026. I doubt I'll do all three of these trips, but let's just say I did. I went to Mount Rushmore. I went to Florida Keys. I went to the Redwood Coast. I got to spend $20,000 at gas stations to get that goal accomplished. How much would it be for all 3 cash days? Again, excluding West Virginia, because I need to do an apples to apples comparison here. I would need to come up with $2,278 because that's how much you would need to buy in to take those vacations. Now, I don't know how much you earn on cash back, so this is a little hard. I've had conversations with Spaithco on the Discord, conversations with Jason on the Discord, because those are 2 guys that love to figure out cents per point and the best way to reach value. And one of them said my average cash back is a little over 4%, like 4.1, 4.2, something like that. So I did 3 different levels. If you can average 3.5% cash back, maybe you're using 2% cash back on some things, but 5% on others, just over $65,000 of spend would be needed. If you can take that up to a 4% average, like I know the PNC Bank card gets you 4% back on gas. Let's say you use the Wells Fargo Attune for certain things, then cash it out. That's 4%. Let's say you have a business gold card from Amex and you spend some stuff on that. Move it over to your business platinum and cash it out at a penny each. $59,950. So just under $60,000. If you are just the most amazing cash back champion of all time and you get 5% cash back on everything with no exception, you only have to spend a little over $45,000. Now, let's compare that with how much I have to spend to get to Wyndham's. While cents per point is great and it is useful to help you determine if you're getting a good deal or not, what it really comes down to at the end of the day is I have to spend this much money to meet my travel goals with this technique. I have to spend this much money to meet my travel goals with this technique. Now, again, this does assume you're willing to do around $16,000 of strategic gift card buying each year, plus $4,000 of natural gas station spend. Not natural gas like propane, but like a gas station spend you would normally do buying Casey's pizza or windshield wiper fluid, gasoline, whatever. Another thing is, and I didn't even factor this in, a lot of gas stations like Hy-Vee, like Casey's, have a rewards program of their own, so you can stack it with that. Sometimes you can stack with upside too. $16,000 a year has to come from strategic spending in my case. I think if you're buying those $500 variable Visa gift cards, that would be 32 times. You have to 32 times every year. You have to buy a $500 gift card and apply that towards some other spend that you normally have. Maybe you're paying tuition for a kid and you can do it that way. That's about 3 times a month. I know you think, oh, that's really annoying. I go by gas stations way more than 3 times a month. There's a little bit of time and effort, but again, this isn't manufactured spending, so you don't have to buy money orders. You don't have to do trickery on the back end. You just buy the gift card and spend it on other things you would normally spend. So I am giving that disclaimer, but with that disclaimer, having said that, it's not even close. So if I go with Vacasas, one option is using that technique, spending $20,063 to get all 3 of those Vacasas. Or option 2, I can spend $45,560 up to possibly $65,086 to get the 3 cash properties, depending on whether you're averaging 4.5% or 5.5%, 4%, or 5%. Here's a graphic to help you understand. Now, again, you can't do apples to apples comparisons, but we have the Vacasas on the right, the cash properties of the boutique hotels on the left. In Key West, the Perry Hotel was a little nicer than the, I don't remember what it's called, Acorn Hotel or something like that. I said this was like an A, this was like a B. So quality-wise, I give a little more advantage to the cash properties. Going to see Mount Rushmore, you had the Roosevelt Hotel versus an entire cabin to yourself. The cabin was way nicer than me. Maybe you get a free continental breakfast, you get some pancakes and biscuits and gravy, which, don't get me wrong, I love, but you get an entire flippin' cabin looking out on trees to yourself, whereas here you're kind of, it is a nice picture with a rainbow, but you're kind of crammed into between 2 valleys with, 200 other people. This was a way more expensive property and way nicer. And then not way nicer, but noticeably nicer, I would say. So you have, this is nicer, this is notably nicer. In my opinion, when it comes to the Redwood Coast category, it's not even close. I mean, yes, this has a hot tub and this doesn't, but you can stand on a tree house and look through your binoculars at the ocean, or you can be right on the flippin' ocean. And I would take right on the flippin' ocean 99 times out of 100. So I would say on the whole, these properties are actually nicer, even though you don't have to spend as much. Now, remember that disclaimer I gave at the beginning. Depending on what you like, this valuation might be completely different, but I did the best I could to take subjective things and make them objective. With that in mind, you know, I know some people, I think Uncle Luke is one of them, have said things like, I don't want a vacation rental. I don't want a Verbo. I don't want a Vacasa because I want a maid. I want turn down service. I want a mint on my pillow. I want a restaurant in the lodging where I'm staying. I want it to be downtown. I don't want to have to run the washing machine and take out the trash on my trip. I don't want to risk the electricity going out. And those are all perfectly cromulent judgment calls. I won't judge anyone for thinking that. But based on my travel style, what I've experienced the last 5.5 years and what I like, Vacasa is not just the winner. It is the completely obvious winner with a bullet. It's like Iowa State playing Indian Hills in basketball and winning 105-62 or something like that. So that's the end of the presentation there. A reminder of the laundry sandwich and how valuable that is. I hope you liked the main event. And now I've got a truckload of questions to catch up on here because I was really pushing hard here. Tractor Supply is where you buy troughs for a cold plunge. That would work as well. Thanks, MR. Clairvoyant says, I'm at the hospital right now. I'm sorry. He said, unfortunately, I'm both. So you're in a public place and a place you don't really want to be. I'm sorry to hear about that. Connecticut Rush fan says, at home. It's a rainy day here in Connecticut. Happy Tom. Hey, Happy Tom. We celebrated your 12-month Die Hard anniversary earlier in the program. Says, I drove the California-Oregon coast a lot for work. Trinidad is a good choice. Glad to hear it because I picked kind of randomly. David Gomez would buy a shirt plus one of the intro. Dugroz here with Dugroz Reports. I'm assuming is what you mean. Austin, the Florida man says, why not buy a Publix gift card at the Office Max and use that for your groceries? Well, Florida man, that's because there are no Publix in my area. The nearest one that I know of is in Florida, and I'm in Iowa. But that kind of thing is a good choice. I was actually going to remember, but I forgot. I was somewhere recently, and I saw a Walmart gift card for sale in a place I wouldn't have expected it. And I don't remember where it was, but I need to loop back around to that and take a picture of it. I often see interesting gift cards. I think to myself, oh, I need to remember that. But then I forget. So I need to take pictures when I see that. I think I've seen Fairway gift cards somewhere. Fairway is another grocery store here in the Des Moines area. So I could buy maybe a Fairway gift card at a gas station. I need to pull back around and remember that. MR says, breakfast pizza. That sounds like witchcraft. Delicious witchcraft. It is. If you're ever in anywhere in the greater Midwest, by all means do that. Gold Homer. How you doing, Gold Homer? Hey, I remember the live stream. Dugroz. Frequent miler accent. Also, the Florida man said, or just like the BCP I just used at the grocery store. Yep, Blue Cash Preferred is good up to $6,000. Mike Newland says, 4K of natural gas spend is a lot a year. 4K of gas spend naturally is a lot per year. So you're right, it is a lot because I think when I did my original budget back in 2018, I only budgeted around $2,000 for like commuting normal type gas. So I'm adding the little extras you get on top of it. I'm adding on top of it the fact that my boys are now starting to drive, want to go to friends' parties. Unfortunately, the school they go to, it's a private school. It's like a half hour from our house. So all their friends live everywhere. So it's not like my friend's house is right down the street. There was one friend's house they drove to. It took an hour round trip to get there. So they're going to be doing a lot more driving. And then my wife commutes to and from school. I'm probably going to be going into the office a little more than I was in the near future. So that plus the breakfast pizzas, maybe I'm overshooting it. I'm not sure. But I'm in the neighborhood, I think. Cesar says, those look nice. I agree. Those properties look nice. So let me know what you think. Are you like me where you're like, oh man, the Vacasa value through Wyndham is so good. I got to keep my Wyndham Earner business card. In fact, I brought it up with me because I was going to show it off and I forgot. I also just realized I think I'm wearing the same shirt in the picture that I'm wearing today. Although the AI decided to make it into a long sleeve shirt. Oh, here it is right here. It's got my membership number in the corner. So I don't want to show that off, but there we go, right there. Wyndham Earner Business Card, just to prove that I really do have it. Sorry, my resolution's not perfect. My conclusion is I'd be a dummy to ditch that card. I definitely need to keep it. Another advantage that I didn't even get into today is cottages.com, which is the same idea as Vacasa, but it's in the United Kingdom. I've even thought I could make a whole identity around RIP trips to the United Kingdom because I've spotted so many of those I want to do. I'm just not sure if they'd be popular enough. I think there's probably 20 cabins in Wales alone that I could go to. So for me, great value. Let me know if you're on team Vacasa via Wyndham or you're on, nope, I just want a regular old boutique hotel, or somewhere in between. And obviously you don't have to pick one or the other. You can do a little bit of each. But the whole reason I did this exercise is thinking through the path method. I have to take some examples. I have to evaluate my spend, see where the greatest value is. And it has told me that I need to keep doing some ordinary spend on that particular credit card. Clairvoyant says, I'm exactly where I want to be. I should be flying to Tahiti and Bora Bora today for a yacht cruise, but I'm here with my dad. I both have nothing better to do, and I'm a fan. That's why I made it through the biology break. That's what I meant by both. Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate that, Clairvoyant. And thank you so much for being a fan. I really appreciate it. We got some people wishing your dad a speedy recovery here. New Again says, I generally don't like rentals due to poor quality controls and customer support. Occasionally, though, hotels are far or way too expensive for a destination. You got to read the reviews. That's why it really matters. I do think probably over in the United Kingdom, the quality is going to be a little better just because I think it's more likely to be locally family owned. They're going to take more pride in it. Ian says, Bora Bora isn't going anywhere. Best to you and your family. Gold Homer says, I'm amazed when I got instant approval for the Wyndham business card with no prior Barclays relationship. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of variability. Some people say that's a really hard card to sign up for. They ask for tons of documentation. There's a few data points that I've kind of thought through, and it seems like if you're applying as something other than a sole prop, it's actually harder. Like if you're applying as a partnership or an S Corp, they want more documentation. But I've had some people apply as a sole prop and say they wanted a photocopy of my driver's license, they wanted my tax returns, et cetera, et cetera. But both Gold Homer and I got approved right away. MR thinks Bora Bora sounds Bora boring. You aren't missing anything. I like the play on words. Cesar says, team regular hotel, but I can see the value of that program. Don't get me wrong. I do like my Hiltons, and I'm going to be doing a laundry sandwich on my trip later this summer. By all means, I'll be doing Hilton, cottages.com, which is the British Vacasa, and another Hilton. Ian says, no way I'm looking forward to Bora Bora. I've got a well-traveled family member who says it's the best in the world and put a lot of weight into their word. Thanks, Ian. New Again says, it almost seems like Vacasa is where Wyndham's at $15K per night went to. It's been hard to find mid-tier hotels at that rate last year or so. And thanks for informing me about cottages.com. Clutch. One of my videos that I worked on the hardest but got the fewest views on per effort is cottages.com. So just go back and find I've got a 2-part video about cottages.com. I think you'll like it. D Green says, Airbnb turned me off to rentals years ago and I've been hotels exclusive since. I need to give rentals another try though. I love the laundry sandwich play. Absolutely. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I had similar skepticism because when I did like vacation rentals, out of my first 4 rentals, I would say something went wrong in 3 of them. But the things that went wrong were kind of minor. The very first one I ever did was at Yorktown, Virginia. I stayed in a historic house, and I got locked in the bathroom because the lock literally broke. Having said that, I kind of understand because it did say it was a 100-year-old house, and everything else about the visit was amazing, and the host was super apologetic and gave me $50 back. So it was kind of a bad experience, but not like a bad experience. And then at one of the Vacasas in Wisconsin, like I said, the electricity went out. So I went to a Days Inn for a day, and they gave me something of a refund, but it wasn't a good enough refund. I think because the Vacasa people don't really understand how much your points are worth. But the property itself was amazing. So again, that's something that went wrong, but not necessarily a deal breaker. It was like the worst windstorm they'd had in the last 3 years, and it's not really their fault, but it happens. Then my wife stayed at a Airbnb in Texas for a work trip, and that was the one that went perfectly. Nothing was wrong with it. And then the other, I don't remember what the third one was that had something that went wrong with it. And for a brief period of time, I was like, I'm never doing vacation rentals again. But yeah, I've come back around. The last vacation rental I did at Accra, New York, that was really good. No problems whatsoever. In fact, it was a newer listing. They only had like 30 reviews, and the host reached out to me and asked me about some suggestions and said she's going to implement them right away, like hanging a curtain in a certain place or using a couple different kinds of pillows, that kind of stuff. Texas Dog says, I wanted the Wyndham business card until Caesars changed the status match rules. I get that. I never really got it for the purpose of Caesars. I got it for either Wyndham themselves, small, not a lot, or for what we just talked about today. Gold Homer says, I stayed at a World Mark by Wyndham, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a full kitchen, 27,000 Wyndham points per night in a major city. Felt like a full package apartment. World Mark is underrated. Yeah, I've seen a few of those where like there's a Wyndham apartment building, and it must have been like 2-bedroom, which is 30,000, but because he had one of the cards, got the 10% discount. So that makes sense. New Again says, yeah, your video a couple months ago is where I learned about Cottage's site. There was one that's more than a couple months ago. One of them is like a year and a half, 2 years old. Austin, the Florida man says, where I live, the short-term rentals are eating up too much of the housing stock that could go to actual residents. I get that, and I didn't get into that, but don't hate the player, hate the game. Ian says, I've only done one Airbnb. It was in Cuba where there's no hotels with programs. It was great. $100 a night for a housekeeper that cleaned and made breakfast every day. That's pretty sweet. Some of the cottages.com I've seen in the United Kingdom, in Wales specifically, are like super homey and relational. Like one of them was my husband and I run the cottage, and we live right next door. If you want to come over and eat breakfast with us, you can. So like if you just want to go over to John Smith's house and eat breakfast every morning, you can. Or like, we have a farm with some sheep. If you want to pet the sheep, just knock on my door and let me know. I'll let you pet the sheep. You know, that kind of stuff. So if you like kind of the homey, cozy type stuff, you definitely have options there. New Again agrees with D Green. Airbnb turned me off too. Almost by rule, I don't do rentals unless super necessary, or their condos ran kind of like a hotel. There are some horror stories out there, so you obviously have to do your research. And even research isn't a guarantee. Happy Tom says, regarding Trinidad, California, I just want to make sure you know about the McKinleyville Airport, which is United only. Nothing else is close. I don't mind getting a rental car and driving. Like even if I had to drive up from San Francisco, I'd be okay with that. Although I don't know what I'm putting myself through. Let me take a quick look here. It never hurts to go on to Google Maps here, although I don't want to take too long. Trinidad, California, not to be confused with Trinidad and Tobago. Put away Happy Tom, pull this up here. Oop. There we are. Okay, so there's Trinidad. Let's see if I can find McKinleyville just by looking. I can't. McKinleyville, California. There it is. Okay, so to walk there would take 5 hours. A bus would take 13 minutes, and driving a car would take 12 minutes. Okay, that's not so bad. And actually, the airport's even closer, so I should probably go like this. Boop. 8 minutes. That's not bad. All right, now there's an airport somewhere in California that has the abbreviation FAT, F-A-T. Can't remember which one that is. Is it Fresno? It is Fresno, Yosemite. Let's see how far away that is. I'm in the wrong part of the state. That didn't make any sense. Let's bring it up to San Francisco, where Stan sometimes works. Got about a 5-hour drive if you fly into Sacramento. Where's the San Francisco airport? I remember it's right on the bay. A lot of people are probably like, Doug, this is the most boring thing ever. Stop it. I don't know if you love geography as much as I do. All right. So if you rent a car at the San Francisco airport, you've got about the same. Sacramento, San Francisco, seeing about half a dozen. 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other. Isn't there an Oakland airport? I believe Oakland Airport, which is Oak. Oh, it's like exactly the same. It's slightly shorter, but not a lot shorter. Does Santa Rosa have an airport? I see something over here. The Charles Schultz City Airport. Let me guess, doesn't even have flights that are commercial. 3.5 hours. So yeah, I might be driving away. Or what about Medford, Oregon? Yeah, there's an airport. Rogue Valley International Airport. Rogue One reporting in. We've got 3.5 hours. Okay, so I've got some options there. But yeah, it doesn't have to be Trinidad, but I would really like to go to that area sometime. In fact, part of the appeal is the fact that it's so remote. Thank you for asking. Rodrigo asked this question. Did you ever try the complimentary breakfast buffet as a Caesar's Diamond status before they took it away? When I was in New Orleans, I went and asked, and what they said is they had just changed their policy like the quarter before, where you have to have at least 100 tier points, which means you have to gamble a little or you have to stay a little. I know different people have different experiences, but they would not let me use it. So I never got my celebration dinner. Fresno, Happy Time says, Fresno, no. Santa Rosa's plan B. Charles Schultz, I bet the fly costs peanuts. Fly into SMF. Which one is SMF? You'll have to remind me. I think the Santa Rosa airport code is STS. Alaska flies into it. And now we know you can combine Alaska with other things. So that might be a dreaded double layover, though. I'd have to check on that. Because I would have to fly like American to Phoenix, Phoenix to Seattle, Seattle to Santa Rosa, probably. If you drive by McKinleyville, stop and say hi. I live 30 minutes away. Oh, okay. Redding, California. Yeah, those are all good ideas. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. All right, it's that time of the week. Let's get into our community tab questions here. So every week I will put a picture up online. You can guess where it's taken, and you can also use that to help figure out what kind of questions you should be asking me. I'll let you ask me anything. Now, I do need to give a little bit of full disclosure here. I have thought about doing away with the community tab segment and just changing it to, instead of ask me anything, just the picture part, because my live stream has been going a little too long lately. So I started at 9:30 and it's almost noon, which means I'm approaching 2.5 hours. Last week, I went almost 3 hours. I went like 2 hours and 45 minutes. I think the sweet spot is like 1:45 to 2 hours. So I got to figure out a way to kind of trim these down. I know a lot of people trickle in, like people on the West Coast or Mountain Time Zone don't log in until a little later, and I get that. But just something I'm thinking about. Oh, right. Community tab questions. First of all, here's the picture I posted. And this is a screenshot from a video, which is why it's not great. That's the picture. You can guess where it was taken. New again clarified the SMF is Sacramento rather, cheaper and not much more driving from Santa Rosa and Redding. Okay, that's a good tip. Thank you. Jessica Wen says, another congrats on the FM shout out. So cool. Thank you, Jessica. Ian K says, congrats on the FM shout out. Thank you, Ian. Mike Newland guessed where this picture was taken and said Branson, Missouri. That's a good guess because if you've paid attention, I have been to Branson. I went there for a family reunion. And I also, it kind of looks like Branson out in the background. You've got some hills, some trees, a porch. So that's a good guess, but nope, wrong guess. Jay Chain says, I'm going to guess somewhere in West Virginia. Good guess, but no. Thank you for the guess. And here's the question Jay Chains has. What do you do when one of your strategies or tricks stop working? For example, Kroger Pay no longer taking your card. Would you bother with the Kroger customer service or simply move on to find new strategies? Keep up the good work and keep making us average Joes proud. Thank you, Jay Chains. I appreciate that. I don't know specifically about Kroger Pay and bothering with customer service with them, so I can't answer that specific aspect of your question. But in a general sense, I'm happy to say, what do I do when one of my strategies or tricks stop working? And the answer is you adjust. Sometimes you adjust, sometimes you move on. One example is what we've talked about today. Vacasa used to not have a formal cap, so it was 13,500 points for any bedroom of any price. Now, anecdotally, a lot of people noticed that once you got up around $500, it would tend to cut off, but you could get almost double the value theoretically. What I'm realizing is the value is still good enough. Another example is I've used the British trick to fly on American Airlines a few times for relatively short flights, like Des Moines to Phoenix or something like that. Well, British raised their award prices for those partners where it's a little more now. Instead of like 12,500, it's 15,000 or something like that. Don't quote me on that. It's still a pretty good value. So in some cases, I might still use it, but I'm more likely to look at a portal or something like that, just depending on a variety of factors. Early on in the game, I could earn points with a Western Union prepaid debit card at Casey's. You could literally just say, I want to load this debit card with, I think you go up to $300, with $300, and then say, what do you want to load it with? And they would let you use a credit card. So I'd then just stick my credit card in the reader, and it's like instantly spending $300. It coded as a purchase. They charged you $1.50 for the load. So that's like points. What's that come out to? That's around half a cent per point to basically buy whatever currency you want at a gas station. That was amazing, but it only lasted like 6 months and then it went away. So whether I just happened to get on the tail end or whether I killed it accidentally, I apologize if I did. I had to adjust and do other things. I mean, how many times have we heard about like, well, you used to be able to do this, but you can't anymore. I used to be able to buy Airbnb gift cards with a Sapphire Preferred or Reserve and pay myself back. Can't do that anymore. But you know what? I can do a lot of pay myself back on Aeroplan. So just adjust and move on. There's things that are always going to go away. Rodrigo says, I definitely don't mind talking about credit cards for 3 hours. Thanks, Rodrigo. Texas Dog asks, is that a basket of Pop-Tarts? Nope, that's a bowl of cereal, but I can see how it kind of looks like a Pop-Tart sticking out. That's a cereal bowl, bottled water, sunglasses, if you're wondering what those various items are. Next question is Brady Smith guessed Wheeling, West Virginia. That's a great guess. I have been to Wheeling, West Virginia. Brady remembered I stayed at the world's best Hampton Inn there, but that's not right. And the first correct guess comes in from Ian, who guesses the Airbnb in the Catskills. Yes, so that is where I stayed, in the Catskill Mountains. And then a few hours later, about 10 hours later, Ron Byrne guessed the same thing, Catskills in New York. So I will now give it away here and show you what I'm talking about. To be more specific, this is a Wyndham Airbnb. Now, I know you may not have heard of Wyndham Airbnbs before. You might be thinking, oh, they now have a partnership with Airbnb too. That's awesome. What I said is true from a certain point of view. It is a Wyndham Airbnb. It's located in the town of East Wyndham, New York. Now, technically, the nearest town, or the town with the address, is Accra, but East Wyndham's such a small town, it doesn't have its own post office, I guess. The cabin is located right here where the Heart is, and looking out this way at some mountains. I'm not sure which mountains those are. The nearest big town is Cairo, but I'm going to call it the East Wyndham Airbnb or the Wyndham Airbnb. And if you want a more zoomed out view, there's Albany. There's Albany. There's Catskill, New York, hometown of Mike Tyson. And there's East Wyndham right here. And East Wyndham is just east of Wyndham, if you're wondering where things are. So yes, the East Wyndham Airbnb is correct. 3,000 Dugroz points to Ian, 2,000 Dugroz points to Ron for guessing second. Jay Chains says, that was really helpful. I appreciate it. Thanks, Chains. Interesting avatar. What is that? Some modern art? Ian didn't ask a question on his Catskills guess, but Ron did. And Ron asked this question. Does your family shop at Sam's, Costco, both, or neither? And how do you pick the wholesale store for your needs? Also, which card do you use? Great question, Ron. At present, we do not have a membership to anything like that. No warehouse clubs or anything. I have had a membership to a Sam's Club in the past, only because at the time, Sam's Club was the only option. There was no Costco anywhere near my house. The nearest one was like 45 minutes away. Since that time, they've now built a new Costco, which is a little closer, but not a lot. So right now, I still don't have a membership to either. And therefore, there's no way I pick those, and I don't really use a card on it. So it's just whatever. If I did use Costco, I would use my US Bank Altitude Reserve. I think that's still an option. That's still a play. Let me know if it's not. But I guess since I don't really use either one, it doesn't really matter. Thanks for the question. I'll catch up on some live comments here. Clairvoyant says, Doug, do you have any idea what your lifetime spend has been from your family travel account? That should give us an idea of how much you've earned since you've started this hobby. You mean how much I have earned that I end up subsequently using as a cash or cash equivalent? I don't, and I will give a couple disclaimers around that. Disclaimer number one is I need better posture. Disclaimer number one is, so I have the rule that travel has to pay for itself, but I didn't always have that rule. When I first got into the game, I had to subsidize because I just didn't have enough built up. There's so much about this game that is momentum, and you can't necessarily keep it all going. You can't necessarily have that momentum right from the get-go. So the first big trip we took, for example, using points and miles, was we went to the Grand Canyon, Horseshoe Bend, the area around northern Arizona, like Page, Arizona. And for the rip, it was all covered with points and miles. The rental car was covered with points and miles. The hotel was covered with points and miles. I actually used a hotels.com gift card purchase at an office supply store. And somehow I cashed out points to pay for those and found a better advantage that way. And then the airline was all through, I don't know, the Chase portal or something like that. But that first trip, I still paid for our sightseeing, our incidentals, our meals, all just the way most families do. Like, well, this is about how much we can afford, $800. Let's just pay for it. So it would give us something of an idea, but not always an idea. Then I moved on to a point where I said, okay, I'm going to pay for my small annual fee cards. Anything that's $150 or less out of cash back. So like my Wyndham Earner Business Card, my Sapphire Preferred, my IHG card, I paid for all of those out of my family travel account. And then finally, like going into 2023, which was the year I went to England and Sweden, that's the year I decided, okay, from now on, it's a net zero. I'm going to pay for everything. So I could go back to the start of 2023 and do some math and see if I could figure it out. I don't remember if I've used my Charles Schwab account since then, but thanks for the reminder. I'll pull that up sometime. And no, I don't have any idea. If I were to take a wild guess, I'd say $4,000 to $5,000, but that's a wild guess. Happy Tom says, come for the points, stay for the subtle Star Wars references. Hopefully you like TK421. YouTube Experiment is here and says, made it before it ended. Good. I've just realized that YouTube Experiment has a goatee and is wearing a hat that looks kind of like a fedora. Are you secretly Nick from Frequent Miler? Like you're the burner account? Texas Dog says, I think Credit Shifu's Airbnb is in the Catskills too. It is actually. Just out of curiosity, I looked it up, and it's not too far from here. It's almost like straight south of here. You'd have to go a little further than what this map shows, but yeah, you go straight down from Catskill and a little bit to the west of the Hudson River, but not a lot. His Airbnb is a little on the pricey side, but it is nice and new. Alaska flies to Santa Rosa. Thanks, Manuel. YouTube Experiment says, I think I'm a few minutes drive to his Airbnb, not sure of the exact location. Shoot, dog. Why don't we just look it up here? I know he has a link to it in his channel. So credit Ben Hedges. Ben Hedges. That's what he goes by nowadays. Ben Hedges, the Credit Shifu. Where is it? Stay at my cabin. There it is right there. All right. We're going to share this tab instead. Here's Credit Shifu's cabin. It's in the Catskills. Got a hot tub, etc. Ellenville, New York. Now, obviously, this isn't going to tell us the exact location, but it will tell us the nearest town with a post office. There's Ellenville right there. So you go up from New York City, White Plains, right there, south of Albany, south of Catskill. So mine was right around here. So yeah, almost straight south by, I don't know, 40, probably over an hour because you have to go around and take the freeway and stuff. So that's where it is, Ellenville, if you're wondering. Random thing of the day. Manuel says, always flies. No, I already answered this one. Okay. YouTube says, no, I wish I was, though. You wish you were Nick from Frequent Miler. Brady Smith agrees it does look like him. Standing in front of the New Orleans castle there. All right, back to the community. Drop my phone. Back to the community tab here. This is from Catch 631. What? Nope. Sorry, I skipped one. Ian asked this question. Where were you daydreaming about traveling to this week? For me, it was hotels I could never afford in Australia. Good call. I had 2 daydreams this week. One was the Redwood Coast of California because I was looking it up and I thought how nice it looked. I have been to the Pacific Ocean, but it was when I was like an adolescent, maybe 13 or 14 years old. And it was like we went to the San Diego Zoo or Disneyland or something like that. And Dad's like, oh, we got to see the ocean. So like, just pull over on this super crowded beach right next to a highway and like take our shoes off and dip them in the ocean. Like, notice how the Pacific Ocean is a lot rockier than the Atlantic Ocean. 3 minutes later, all right, get back in the car. I've never actually taken the time to enjoy the Pacific Ocean or swim in it. And yes, that's exactly how my dad talked back in the late 80s, early 90s, apparently. Douglas, get in the car. It was more like that. So I've been there, but I've never had the time to enjoy it. So I think maybe I know Frequent Miler's constantly talking about the Ventana Big Sur, which I don't know that I'd be able to get. I think that's a Hyatt or a Hilton, one of the two, an adults only hotel. But maybe I can get that lodge in Trinidad and say good enough. That's something I'm daydreaming about. The other one I was daydreaming about was going back to Sweden just because I liked it there so much, but we only had 3 days, really almost more like 2.5 days, 3 nights. I'd love to go there with just me and the wife sometime. So I was kind of daydreaming about Sweden. I saw some specific Hyatts, some specific places. Josh Giebel was talking about going to Malmo, Sweden, which is right across the inlet from Copenhagen, Denmark. So that's what I was daydreaming about. Good question. Catch 631 says this. What credit card would you suggest for someone looking to get transferable currencies? They want to keep it simple and travel a lot, but it's for work, so work pays for it. No airline or hotel loyalty, but they want to earn points from the travel expenses, like dining, incidentals, etc. They already have 2 no annual fee cards, but they earn cash back only. Oh boy. So I think what you're saying is if I had a job where I traveled for work and work let me book the travel. Now, I don't know if they let you book the airfare or not, but things like incidentals and dining, what would I pick? My first thought was the Capital One Duo. If they're willing to get 2 cards, get the Capital One Venture X. You're going to have some lounge access. You're going to have the Priority Pass. You're going to have good enough travel protections. You have that price guarantee thing. Any travel you can book, like if your employer lets you get a hotel, who cares if it's overpriced? The employer is paying for it. Just book it through the Capital One portal and you're earning 10x on rental cars and hotels. And that would be pretty sweet. And then if you could use your Saver card for your dining and those kind of things, that wouldn't do any good at hotels. Maybe a Wells Fargo autograph for the hotel incidentals. You'd be getting 5x on those and it's transferable. So that's something else to think about. So I guess just off the top of my head, I would say if you're booking the actual travel, hotel and flights and or rental cards, I would do the Capital One Venture X and if possible, add the Saver. If you are not booking the actual travel, but just things like dining and incidentals, I would recommend the Wells Fargo, either Autograph or Autograph Journey, especially if you're eating in hotel restaurants a lot because it gets 5x on hotels, and that would be pretty awesome. And then for maybe both, get the Autograph and the Autograph Journey. Use your Autograph for things like transit and dining at regular old restaurants. Although I'm pretty sure the Autograph Journey also gets 3x on dining. So whether you eat in the restaurant or you're eating in a restaurant, you're coming out ahead. So Capital One or Wells Fargo is what I'm thinking if you want to keep it simple. Now, if you're willing to get more complicated, get 5 or 6 cards, I think Chase is a better choice. Gold Homer says, I just stayed at the Alila Ventana, Big Sur. It's fantastic. Did a cool class on falconry and got to launch a falcon from my arm. Awesome. Is that a Hyatt property? Am I remembering correctly? Source King says, I think Sweden is the best place on earth, but I'm slightly biased. Well, your flag definitely gives it away, Source King. And I apologize if you've mentioned this before. Are you from Sweden originally? Do you live in Sweden now, or you just travel there a lot? Or maybe you have family ties? My wife is at least 50% Swedish, or roughly 50% Swedish. I would love to touch base with you offline about like different towns in Sweden and some of those things. So let me know if you're part of any of the Discords too. Community tab. Cesar Joel, last but not least, asked this question. Are Citi and Wells Fargo too late to enter the premium travel card space? What could they offer to make it worth taking into consideration what Amex, Chase, and Capital One already have? Keep up the good work, mi hermano. Thank you, Cesar. I'll answer those in reverse order. I'll take Wells Fargo first. So I did a video, I don't remember if it was earlier this week or late last week. I actually recorded it 2 weeks ago. This is a trick about YouTube a lot of people don't think about. Just because you see a video come out doesn't mean I've worked on it recently. So like I frequently launch videos around 11 or 11:30 in the morning. And a lot of times I'm working away. I'm at my work computer. Sometimes I'm in the office and some video I edited a week ago is being launched because I'm trying to space them out and those kind of things. So if my boss is watching this or any of my coworkers, just note, just because I put out a YouTube video doesn't mean I'm not working, because I probably recorded it some other time. But I digress. I did a video that's called something like what Wells Fargo needs to do, or Wells Fargo do this. And I think, hat tip to Matt Clausen, he pointed out it's going to be really hard for them to get those top-notch travel partners. And no, I don't think they can just buy Bilt and inherit Hilton and Hyatt and all that stuff. I think there's a back-end agreement that if Bilt gets bought out by one of the same companies that issues other exclusive credit cards, those go away. I mean, if Wells Fargo bought out Bilt and you could transfer 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or whatever to Bilt, Amex is going to call up Hilton and say, you need to dump Bilt immediately. I don't want Wells Fargo profiting off of us. And they're gone. Same thing with Hyatt and Chase. If Wells Fargo gets access to Bilt partners, Hyatt is calling up Chase and saying, or other way around, Chase is calling up Hyatt and saying, you're out. You're not on Bilt anymore. So I don't think Wells Fargo is going to be able to merge with Bilt. That's a best guess, but that's my thought process. Or if they did, it would ruin Bilt. I also don't think they're going to be able to get Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt, the three big ones, because they all have exclusive agreements. I don't think Wells Fargo is going to be able to get United, American, Delta, or Southwest because they all have agreements. I think they could pick up Wyndham and be okay. But in that video, what I said is I think what Wells Fargo needs to lean in is being like the U.S. Bank Altitude Reserve. Lean into Portal. Get your Portal up to the same as the Golden Ponies card. Get that going at 1.5 cents per point, at least for airfare. I mean, you've already got the precedent, preferably for everything, and make it good. Don't jack it up like Chase is apparently doing. And then I would say some sort of travel eraser would be great. Good enough insurance. Keep the transfer partners you have. Maybe add something like Wyndham, something like Air Canada that's a little more attainable. Do it for a reasonable annual fee. Give us a lump sum credit, not something that's a coupon book, like maybe $300 a year in any travel as a credit to offset that. You can give us a few priority passes. You don't have to give us unlimited. It could be 8, it could be 10, whatever. Basically, just copy the U.S. Bank Altitude Reserve, make it a little bit better, and have transfer partners. And I think you would nail that mid-tier travel market so hard. So that's what I think Wells Fargo should do. With Citi, I'm a little more skeptical because I think they're going to pull back on some of those ancillary benefits, like we've seen the ability to cash out for penny points on the Strata Premier go away. It's now down to 0.7 of a penny, 75% of a penny, I should say. And the penny itself is going away, by the way, from what I hear. So Citi would have to make something really awesome with American Airlines to keep me. Now, there are some interesting kind of things you can do with Citi, like you can be like the Uris and get 10 custom caches. But yeah, that's what I would like them to do. Wells Fargo needs to embrace portal and pay yourself back type stuff. Citi needs to embrace American and make it good value. Don't be stingy with it. They also need to up their customer service dramatically. Thanks, Cesar. Let's see. Gold Homer says Big Sur is a Hyatt property. It's under the brand Alila. I didn't know that was a Hyatt brand. 45K Hyatt points a night if you can find award availability. I've heard it is hard to find. Happy Tom asked which Discords I'm in. Stack Your Points and the Anthony Venture Discord. Cesar did see the Wells Fargo video. Thanks, buddy. Brady says if Wells gets Air Canada, that would be a game changer. I don't know that it'd be a game changer for me, but it would be a big step in the right direction. Source King says, born and raised in Sweden, and my family still lives there. I've been living in the U.S. for 20 years. Awesome. Thanks, Source King. What attracted you to Points and Miles? Probably flying back to Sweden. Yeah, I'd love to touch base with you offline sometime. Tom says, Alila great value meals are included. Okay, Alila is great value. Meals are included and some activities included. Really enjoyed the stay, worth the hefty use of your ultimate reward points. That's Tom DeCase or DeCass. Did I get you mixed up with the other Tom? If I did, I apologize. Tom DeCass. DeCase. Cesar says, yep, so they can be just good enough and copy others. That means they're a little late to enter the premium travel card game. It does mean they're late. I will acknowledge that. But why not lean into 2008 hard? Tiger Maple has arrived and says, new subscriber here. Thanks for being subscribed, Tiger Maple. I really appreciate that. What's in that in your avatar? An army dude throwing a bouquet of flowers? Something like that? New Again says, Doug, you're 100% about Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo can also lean into Choice and Radisson more too. Citi is done. They're out. Hopeless. I kind of feel like Citi's, this sounds pathetic. Citi's only value comes from their own incompetence. And what I mean by that is there are some things that are hackable about Citi. And this is fully available out there online. I'm not saying anything that other people don't already know, but like, you can get multiple custom caches if you want to be like, I think one of the Yuri said, I'm retired now. I do manufactured spending for a living. If you want to do that, because you can hack Citi in that way, you can hack Citi in that way. Because Citi like won't do anything nasty to you if you go to the gas station and buy 100 gift cards. Because they have uncapped grocery, you can really abuse it. So the ability to abuse Citi is almost what makes them worthwhile, but that's not a very good business model. And that only applies to a certain subset of our niche. Cesar said I canceled all of my wife's Citi's cards, all 4 of them yesterday. Oh, I thought you loved Citi, but maybe you're just trying to slim down. If you want to give us a 1-paragraph explanation, I'd be glad to hear it. Gold Homer says, I would love a 1.25 cents per point travel eraser by Wells. Oh, I would too. And please keep your points transferable from one to another. Can you imagine, getting 5X on a hotel, moving it from your autograph journey over to your new Wells Fargo premium card, and then getting the functional 7.5% cashback equivalent? Tiger Maple says, Flower Bomber, Rage, or Love's in the Air is a 2003 stencil mural by the graffiti artist Banksy. Oh, okay. I've heard of Banksy. Don't know a lot about him or her, but I've heard enough to know that person exists. I am going to now go through the summary of people who gave super chats and donations, and then this will be your last chance. This is about your 3 to 5 minute warning here. If you want to drop $1 or $2, I would really appreciate that. Again, 80% supports the channel, 20% supports my family. Please, sir, won't someone think of the children? And you can become a member. If you join as a member voluntarily while the live stream's going on, we'll have a little celebration. Let's review. Mike Newland gifted 20 Dugroz Reports memberships. John donated $2. Juan Garcia gifted 5 memberships. Tom Graber gave a $5 super chat. Rex gave a $1.99 super chat. Later on, Mike donated 20 more memberships. That's the equivalent of 40. Thank you so much. And QC Man 2000 gifted 1 Dugroz Reports membership. Thank you so much for doing that. Cesar said, I just want to simplify and getting getting rid of just good enough cards without a referral program. I get that. Newgate says city's cracking down on many things, multiples, product changes, etc. Yeah, like not being allowed to product change from the Rewards Plus to anything you want to change to. It may be over. Time to pivot, people. Anthony Fantino says, I've been trying to find a great Wyndham property to stay at. I booked the all-inclusive Wyndham Ultra in Cancun for $30K with all food and drinks included. Sounds like a good value. That does sound like a good value. Hopefully it's well rated. I found a Wyndham, what do they call it? Wyndham Garden? Wyndham Hilton Super Garden? I'd like to stay at a hotel called the Wyndham Hilton Super Garden. I need to write that down so I come back to it later. Wyndham Hilton Super Garden. There's some sort of property that Wyndham has with the word garden in it. I can't think of what it is. There's a Wyndham Garden something in Long Island, New York, not too far from LaGuardia that I got for a really good price. I don't know that I'm going to keep it because I might want to try to use some Hilton gift cards instead, but it was over 3 cents per point. Happy Tom decided to come in strong with a $2 super chat of his own and says, here's to 12 more months. Cheers, Tom. Thank you so much. Celebrate. I really appreciate that. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and that your travels are successful. Whether you're staying at a Vacasa or you're staying at a Wyndham Hilton Super Garden, no matter what, I hope it goes well for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. And thank you for your patronage. And as always, may your spending be frugal and may your points be plenteous. Thanks for watching.